Well, good morning, everyone. Let's get started, and appreciate everybody being here. Councilwoman Jen Duff, she's on virtual. Councilmember, are you online with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
You bet. Great. And Councilmember Adams will join us shortly. With that, item 1A is the presentation of our Community Services Group. Ruth and your team, why don't you get started?
Great, wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I am Ruth Giese, Community Services Director. With me today is Lindsay Belinkie, our Deputy Director, as well as Michelle Durkovic, our Senior Fiscal Analyst. Community Services has had a tremendous year, providing impacts to our community and services for our public. And this is due in part to our team. And I wanted to make sure that I thanked them this morning for all that they do to serve everyone in Mesa. I would like to start with our public purpose, which is strengthening our community and providing housing assistance, animal advocacy and control, community engagement, and supporting essential community needs for Mesa residents. I wanted to provide a little bit of overview of what Community Services does. We do quite a lot and have lots of different divisions, so I wanted to just give everyone an opportunity to understand what we do. So first, we have our Animal Control Division, providing community outreach and education. They are spearheading our new program, Trap, Neuter, and Return, which I'll be talking about in more detail in a future slide. Our Community Engagement Division is primarily focused on resident and neighborhood outreach. We also help coordinate lots of citywide events during the year, and our citywide volunteer program is celebrating this year with National Volunteer Week. We kicked that off on Monday. Several of you were there. And we're thanking our volunteers with thank you banners throughout downtown. Those are new this year, so we were really excited about that. Our Human Services Division is primarily focused on the homeless solutions programs, including Off the Street, heat safety, and our street outreach and navigation oversight. Our Housing Authority provides the rent payments and housing vouchers. We basically receive the monies from HUD and we help to disperse those. That's our main priority. We also have a landlord program and a housing inspections program as well. Our community development area is primarily responsible for the allocation of our federal funding and agency monitoring, but we also provide direct services that includes our emergency homeowner rehab program that I'm going to talk about in a minute as well. So going to our priorities and objectives, our three main priorities: support self-sufficiency and housing stability, educate and engage the community, and to operate our department with high standards and the Mesa Way. And some of our successes in achieving these priorities I'm going to highlight in the next 3 slides. The first is our homeowner emergency rehab program. This program is funded with our community development block grant funds, and it provides grants to repair or rehab homes for low-income individuals. And these grants are up to $25,000 per household. So far to date, we have allocated over $2 million for 127 projects. And to give you an idea of who we're serving, we provided some demographics. 94% of our residents in this program are elderly, and almost 45% have a disability. And there's a photo there to the right that just provides you a before and after. One thing was actually providing a safe entrance to somebody's home. The next highlight I would like to talk about is our Housing Authority. They are definitely demonstrating the Mesa Way with excellence and accountability of program management. They are celebrating 13 years as a high-performing agency, And this is a designation that's provided by HUD, the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Agency. And in order to receive this designation, you go through a complete assessment program on an annual basis. And it really reflects our ability to effectively administer programs and provide housing quality and managing our budget in a excellent way. So this 13 years, I'm really proud of this team, and they do a lot of hard work to achieve this.
Just to be clear, this is federal pass-through grants through HUD
Yes.
that we use for rental payments?
Correct, Vice Mayor and Mayor, Vice Mayor. We basically, every month, we receive about $2 million in disbursements directly from the federal government. And then those are dispersed each month directly to the landlords for those that we're providing rental assistance on behalf of.
And what happens if this money is severely cut
We
by the
have
federal
been.
budget?
Thank you for that question, Mayor, Vice Mayor. We are looking, we have ears and eyes to the ground to see if we hear of anything. So far, we have level funding. The only thing that we do know about is our emergency voucher program. We received additional vouchers during COVID to provide emergency housing assistance. And those, the funding was to go to 2030. And currently, it looks like we're going to be, the program is going to spend down its money by 2026. So that's the only one that we've heard of, but we're already working with our local HUD rep to prepare a waiver so that if in fact, as those monies are not available to us, we'll be able to use our regular housing vouchers to serve those individuals.
From a human perspective, is this 4,085 persons currently served? Or how many people would that impact?
Okay, so our
Directly, if
monthly
it's right up.
impact is total vouchers. So currently, we disperse about $2 million in payments per month for all the vouchers that we have. The emergency voucher, it's 100 vouchers. So we would have to slowly, as those, we cannot reuse those vouchers. They were just one time only for families that were using them. So we cannot reuse them anyway. But as we go into the next year, we would just then help with each one to use a regular voucher.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. I also wanted to briefly talk about the TNR program, Trap, Neuter, and Return. We began the program in February, so it's been 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, we have altered 175 cats. We have 38 resident participants in the program, and we have 2 veterinarians that began with us at that time. Since that time, we now have a 3rd veterinarian in East Mesa that is joining our program, so that just gives more options for our residents. We also had another forum, open house, and 30 more residents have joined the program. So there's really been a lot of interest in participation in the program, and so we've been really busy working with those folks to get them on board, and we'll continue to provide updates on how the program is going as we move forward this year.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. My name is Michelle Durkovic, and I'm the Senior Fiscal Analyst for Community Services Department. The following is our department's financial summary. This includes fiscal year 23-24 year-end actuals, our 24-25 revised budget and year-end estimates, as well as our 25-26 proposed budget. Starting with our general funds, a reminder that our allocation of general funds is a small amount of funding compared to our complete budget for the department. Specifically, in fiscal year 25-26, our proposed budget is comprised of less than 15% of general funds. I'd like to start under Community Services Administration. The fiscal year 24-25 revised budget increased $0.3 million, which included a new marketing and communications coordinator and other personnel cost increases. Moving to animal control, in the next row, the Trap Neuter Return Program was created at the request of council, and this accounts for the $0.4 million increase from 23-24 into the revised 24-25 budget. Next, community engagement stayed level, funding from 23-24 going into 24-25 revised budget. Finally, our human services budget increased in 24-25 with the creation of the Office of Human Solutions. As we move to the far right column for our general fund 25-26 proposed budgets, our first three core business processes or divisions that are under general fund, Community Services Administration, Animal Control, and Community Engagement, stay close to level funding throughout 25-26 proposed budget. The Office of Human Services 25-26 proposed budget did increase to $5.6 million. This includes our annual allocation of $3.4 million. We did have some carryover as well, and we are going to discussing an adjustment request. Lindsay is going to further discuss that in the presentation. Moving down to our federal funds. Another reminder is the timing of these federal dollars is different among our various grants. Some are based on our fiscal year, some come in our calendar year. So there is a time that we have to carry over funding just to expend our full allocation of dollars. We also have projects that are multi-year until completion, and that would also require us to move funds into the next fiscal year. Under the federal funds, the community development row, in fiscal year 23-24, community development ended at $11.5 million. This ending balance was after $15.6 million was carried over from 23-24 into the 24-25 revised budget. The same carryover process occurred in our fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget. We received 6.2 in our annual allocation, and 18.5 was carried over into 25-26 proposed budget, creating the 24.8 million. Moving down to our housing services allocation, it has increased since 23-24 and also increased in 25-26 proposed budget. This is because of our utilization increases, as well as a per unit cost increase. Plus, we did receive 15 additional VASH vouchers. This brings the community services proposed budget to the $65.2 million that you see.
Any questions, council? On the community development, there was a swing there, so just to understand it better.
Yeah, that carryover, maybe you could just explain that a little bit for the people listening,
Yeah, it is.
why it wasn't used in the previous year.
And again, it could be just of when we receive the funding. It could be projects that would take more than 1 year to complete. So we would have to move any unspent money into that new fiscal year in order to make sure that we expend the full amount. So it might just not end at a year. It might go on for more than 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And we also wanted to point out, in addition to our own budget that we have within our department, we do contract management. We do have 15.1 in American Rescue Plan ARPA funding, and also 14.5 million in One Arizona Distribution Settlement Funds, or opioid funding, that we are responsible for in our department.
Mayor?
Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't know. I have a question on a couple of questions. Well, first of all, on the opioid funding, this is just a 1 year funding, right?
Mayor, council member, that's the total amount of funding we've received thus far from the opioid settlement fund. So there are additional distributions coming, but that is over a 3-year time period that we have received that total amount.
Okay, and do we know what is the future expectation as far as funding ongoing?
Mayor and council member, so the distributions are set, but it is based on all of the different settlements for different pharmaceutical companies. So what we're seeing is some will declare bankruptcy and those go away while new ones are added in. So we know that we will get, they're saying we'll get as much as 17 million, maybe up to 22 million over 18 total years. And so we do get disbursements of that annually from the different settlement funds.
Great, thank you.
So the way I understand it, does the state receive that settlement monies and then it's distributed to the municipalities?
Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Okay. I think overall, it'd be nice to see how the distribution is going to be, where it's breakdown. And so if you can give us a whole snapshot, and maybe council would want to direct some of the monies to other areas in the community. And so I know we may have done that in the past, but is it okay to do that?
Yes, Mayor, so we plan to come back to council in the next month or so and talk about, we have developed the community grant program that is utilizing these funds, so we'll provide an update on that. And then we can also provide where we've talked about additional funding going with you and the recommendations we've received and plans that we have for those funds.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you give us a list of what's scheduled today, and then we may add to that. Is that okay, Mr.? I didn't recognize Mr. Butler here and replaced Mr. Brady, so thank you.
Filling in this morning, Mayor. Yes, and as Lindsay said, staff is planning to come back next month to have a more thorough discussion on that, and so certainly at that point we can tell you about more details of the one-year plan that we currently have in place, but then council can certainly entertain changes in the future if that's what council would like to see.
So basically, we have $4.5 million for, and is there a timeline on that to spend those monies, or?
Mayor, I believe it's within the total 18 years of the
Okay.
funding cycle, so.
And as you said, there'll be other settlements to capture other monies from the other companies. All right. Yes.
So this is accumulated over the last 3 years, and we have not spent any. This is the total?
Yeah, correct. Mayor
Okay.
and Councilmember Goforth, we've been working with the county, Maricopa County, for the last 2 years. We had a fellow that was here, a county fellow that was embedded with the city of Mesa, looking at the plan and how would it best suit both Mesa and the region as a whole. So we want to make sure that we're working together as a region when we combat this issue. And so we have not spent up to this point. We have gone out and looked at the different departments and what their needs are. So far, their needs have been met through county money and other sources, so we haven't had to go into this pot yet. So we have been addressing it, just not with these funds. Now we're coming back with a master plan for these funds.
Great, thank you.
So this money is in our bank account gathering interest?
It is. We have received this. Everything here has been received.
Okay. All right. Do other municipalities have monies like this, like our neighboring communities?
There are some, Mayor and Council, we are a direct recipient. Not all cities are that, if I'm looking at Lindsay to verify that. But so we are a direct recipient because of our size. So through a formula, we have received these funds. But there are funds in others where we work with Chandler, we work with Phoenix to find out what they're doing with those. We have identified a couple of things for the police department, a couple of equipment items that they want, and we are working toward those purchases.
All right. Vice Mayor?
No, I think that's important because so this shows up in our balance sheet, in our spending, whereas other cities, it won't because they're not a direct recipient. Would that be accurate?
Mayor and Council, anything that we receive, yes, would show up in our budget as a whole. So any pass-through money that comes through, any funds that we receive that maybe another city does not receive, all goes into the bottom line budget.
Great. Just a separate question on the other side of the line. The ARPA funding, how much of that remains? How much money of that remains for the program? Do we know?
Mayor and Vice Mayor, I'm not aware right now. Irma would have the final numbers on what our outstanding items are. I know that we have everything obligated that we needed to obligate by December of '25. That was our deadline.
Okay.
We did shift some funds to make sure that we could meet those federal deadlines and make sure that we were able to use every dollar that we were allotted.
And do we know when we'll spend that down?
We are required to spend it down by December of '26.
Okay, so next year. All right, thank you.
Ms. Pillsbury?
Oh, I just wanted to make the point, and I mean, obviously, you're going to come back and do a whole presentation on it next month, but the grants that we're doing, which is $1 million about, right? So that, the goal for that money is to get it out as soon as possible, right? We're trying to get
Yes,
this
Mayor,
quick
Mayor,
and get
Councilmember
it.
Spilsbury, that is our goal, to get it as fast as possible.
Opioid, yes, sorry.
Fast as possible into the right hands for the right purpose.
Right.
And we are working with Mesa Public Schools. We just met with them this week so that they could weigh in on some of the applications have asked to work in the schools. And we wanted to make sure we had Mesa Public Schools input before
Yes.
we approve a program that they may not fit.
Okay.
And so we had that feedback this week, and that's why probably next month we'll come back with final recommendations.
Yeah, I appreciate putting it out to the public and the application process and making sure we're covered on every front, but I also want to get that money out the door and get it into our communities, so perfect, thanks.
Ms. Duff, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Okay. All right. Is Lindsay up or who's up?
I'll move on to our reduction requests. Our target was $86,762 for our general fund areas, our smaller area. We had each division participate. That was the community engagement, community services administration, animal control. And we were also able to shift a quarter of an FTE to permanently charge our federal grants instead of general funds. So we were able to meet that goal as well.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Lindsay Belinkie. I am the Deputy Director for Community Services, and I also oversee our Office of Homeless Solutions. And the budget adjustments that we're going to talk about today all fall within the Office of Homeless Solutions. The first one is for heat relief and heat safety. This is a one-time request for $89,800. And with heat relief, we do obviously continue to see a demand for these services because of the dangerously high temperatures and the consecutive days in which they have occurred over the last few summers. We have seen an increase in heat-related deaths in Mesa, in the Mesa region, which may include some of our county islands, which are highly impacted. Those have gone up from last year, from 2023 to last summer. We've also seen a reduction in some of the regional services that Mesa utilizes, Mesa residents utilize in the form of heat transportation. We do plan, in addition to this request, to continue a 3-year intergovernmental agreement. This is with Maricopa County Public Health Department. They have generously provided funding and been a great partner to us, and that has really funded our primary heat relief center, which is the one that is located with our partner Resurrection Street Ministries. That's on Main Street near Stapley. And that has been, this funding covered last summer. It will cover this summer and the following summer for that specific site. That really offers, they can serve up to 150 people at a time. And that is a cooled space. People can come in and really be safe from the outdoors. It does tend to serve primarily our unhoused community. And they also provide a lot of different services. We do have some of our street outreach navigators there to help people access services and hopefully begin to exit homelessness while they're spending time in that safe space. There are also showers and some medical services by Circle the City. So it's a very collaborative effort there, and that will continue through 2026.
Lindsay, what are the hours of service for that?
That site has changed a little bit for this year. So we do have some other cooling centers within Mesa. Having weekend coverage is really important. And so this center has adjusted their hours to stay open for the weekend. They'll be open Sunday through Tuesday. So nope, Tuesday through Sunday. So they will close on Monday to kind of reset and give their staff a chance to get ready for the next round of services. We do have other services available on Monday. And then it's from 9:30 to 6:30 each of those days, 6 days a week.
I just had a briefing at Maricopa Association of Governments yesterday, and some of them are staying till 10 p.m. Do we have anything open till 10 p.m.?
Mayor, we do not have that coverage right now. We've really analyzed with the fire department our calls for service. And so they continue to show that about 8 p.m. is the cutoff time for the more regular calls. They see an uptick during the day when those higher heat temperatures are there. And we have not seen through that data a need for that type of coverage, although Phoenix does provide that.
Okay, great. We'll keep an eye on it for us.
Yes.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mayor?
Yes.
Hi, this is Councilmember Duff. I'm sorry to butt in, but on this, what are the months of operation? I'm sorry if I missed it. Is, summer, is that June, July?
Mayor,
August?
Mayor and council member, that's a great question. So the heat season is typically considered from May 1st to the end of September.
Okay, thank you.
So just to finish this explanation, this funding is specifically to establish funding for next summer. We do have carryover dollars that we've saved that will cover the 2025 summer. This work is complicated because it straddles fiscal years. So we're always kind of playing with that. But this funding is for our portable air conditioning loan program. So that was started last summer, and we were able to serve 56 individuals, households that received those loaned air conditioning units. This will also help us establish more transportation for our community, and maybe in those areas where we don't have as many services, we will have transportation and be able to help people be safe and get to a heat relief center if that's what they need. And this also covers some of our outreach materials. We do a ton of collaboration with all of our first responders that are out in the community, our park rangers, making sure they have materials and can let people know where the services are. And of course, a continued collaboration with all of our heat relief partners, the nonprofits and churches that also do this work in the community.
Ms. Goforth.
So this is a one-time, and I know you said it straddles the fiscal year. So I assume it was a one-time budget adjustment last year as well for 24-25.
Mayor
What
and
was
Councilmember.
that number? How does it differ from this
For
year?
last year, Mayor and Councilmember, we had the IGA funds, so that's $235,000, and then we had ARPA dollars, about $35,000 that were included for heat relief services,
Okay.
as well as the street outreach navigation, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide here, but that was included in our heat request last year because that is an essential component to have our street outreach team out there interacting with the community and letting them know of services and oftentimes transporting people to services.
So this is the first year we're using general fund dollars, is what you're saying?
That is a good question, Mayor and Council Member. We do have some general fund dedicated to security services at the day respite center, the primary heat relief center, and that is ongoing for $75,000, covers security as well as some of our administrative costs to run these programs.
But Lindsay, you're maintaining the same scope of service this summer as you provided last summer, is that correct?
We are able to add that transportation service this summer as well.
Okay.
And I think also, Mayor and Council, one of the things that we looked at, and the reason why the transportation service is important, is that this year we had looked at possibly opening up an east side respite center. But with looking at the budget and as going forward, we decided not to do that this year and to focus on the transportation. So if there are still individuals who we need to transport to an air-conditioned location, we have that ability. But we are not opening up, we're not expanding the program into another location. We're staying with the same location we had last year.
So what's the total for the heat relief? What's the total spend for the heat relief, for this program? You know?
Mayor and council members, so we have, this summer, we have the $75,000 dedicated to, and that's an ongoing general fund budget item, that's dedicated to having security and
administrative costs. Okay. And then we really utilize the ARPA dollars provided by the county. We're using saved carryover dollars in the amount of about $89,000 for this summer for these services as well. So that would be
Okay, so it's those two
89 and
essentially.
75. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. I met with a company yesterday, and they wanted to help maybe participate in the heat relief program. Do we have a mechanism where someone can make a donation for like portable air conditioning units instead of purchasing them? Do we-
Mayor, thank you. That would be lovely. Yes, we would be happy to talk to anyone like that. We've been working with the Mesa Chamber as well to talk to some air conditioning companies that are willing to help us out, help Mesa residents out and making those connections. So we'd love to, you can send that person to me and we'll work with Sally and others to make sure.
And you can send that to council so we could all have that information? Because we all meet with different people all during the, our tenure here, so having that information in our pocketbook may help.
Mayor, what like a contact person
Uh-huh.
to send people to? Okay,
Yeah.
yes, we can do that, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? Ms. Pillsbury?
I'm looking at the maps that are at the end of our presentation that just show like where the deaths in Mesa occurred. Is this a map for just this, like that list was last summer?
Can you go to that, Michelle?
I thought this was a helpful map, and this,
Yes.
the area that's the darkest red is mostly in my district, so that was
Yes, so
concerning to me.
Mayor and Councilmember, this is showing the data that we know so far from Maricopa County Public Health Department. So it is still under review. They have not given us the final data, but this is what we know so far and visualized. It is zoomed in a little, so we don't have the full city represented here, but these are the hot spots and the areas that are very impacted, and you can see the data there. Within that darker red area that is in your district, there are at least one or two large county islands in there too, so that we believe is impacting that data. We don't have that quite yet. You can also see then our heat relief locations that are showing up on the map there. So we do have several in the western region, and we do have a few that are populating in the eastern side of Mesa. We are actively also doing outreach and constantly connecting with the community to see if we can stand up other sites at other locations.
That was going to be my next question. If we were doing, I know last year there was a big push to talk to all the different like mobile home parks and neighborhoods
so
to make
could
sure
you
they're
go to the-
checking on their neighbors and.
Next slide.
I mean, it does look like number-wise, we're still getting a lot more that aren't the indoor ones, but even to know that we have any indoor ones is
Yeah,
really
so
sad.
Mayor and Councilmember, we actually learned yesterday that we have had some challenges in getting the data from the county that is divided into years. Before yesterday, we had it all in a 4-year clump. And yesterday, they provided us some new data from 2023, which did show that for 2024, the indoor heat-related deaths are really what is rising despite all of our efforts, and our air conditioning loan program, our housing rehab program really contributes to helping folks as well. And so we've provided here the overlay. This is all of the mobile home parks that we have within our neighborhood outreach system, our mapping system, which our community engagement team has done a great job of really trying to identify every mobile home in the area. So this is helping us see where those communities might be impacted as well and informing our outreach plan. So we communicate with all of the mobile home parks and any of the areas that are really those darker colors that we're seeing more and more people impacted. We're talking to our faith community, really asking everyone to get the word out because this is a very important issue. It is impacting housed people, unhoused people, indoors and outdoors. We've done a heat safety webinar just to really teach people. You may have lived here for a long time and you're used to being warm in your home, but you need to know the warning signs, and it's not okay to turn your air conditioning off in the summer. So we're trying to layer in services and let people know about other services in the community and just
teach them really to be very aware of their personal safety in their home. People feel safer, I think, in their homes, but we're seeing that is not always the case when they have an air conditioning issue or a financial issue that is preventing them from running that.
So if people live in one of those county islands, I mean, her, Councilmember Goforth's district is covered in them, but I do have those two main ones that would fit
Yes.
into this red spot. I mean, if they reached out and said, I need an AC loan, but they're county, what do you tell them?
We will, Mayor and Councilmember, we will connect them with other resources. There are some other services within the region that do serve county islands. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're connecting them to a resource that might be able to provide a permanent fix or a loaned unit as well.
Okay, great.
Mr. Redia.
Lindsay, is there a way to overlay data on cost for service that are concerning on heat-related issues? I think that will be helpful to add to the this data as far as deaths, because I know there's a lot of other calls that happen to maybe fire that folks can see the impact, right? It's not just, one person dying it's very important for us to identify, but the calls that we get, how we can add to that information for folks to understand the scope of this issue in the summer months here.
Yes, Mayor and Council, that's a great question. We do work closely with our fire department and the Fire and Life Safety Division. And they do provide that overlay, and we've looked at that with them to really look at not only the deaths, but the calls for service and areas of need. There are many calls for service in these higher, the brighter colors. And they've also added some elements to their data collection to try to gather if they're going on a medical call, they're checking the status of the air conditioning unit, asking the individual. If they find that there is an issue with that unit, then they can elevate it to the Fire and Life Safety team and our team so that we can make that connection to get them other types of assistance and educate them about what's available out there. So we're looking at all of that and doing those overlays and really working as a collaborative unit to try to address this issue.
Thank you.
I want to recognize Councilmember Adams has joined us a few minutes ago. Councilmember, any questions? Adams?
No, good morning, Mayor. No, not at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Duff, any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I'd like to mention on this subject matter, I'm aware of a startup who is looking for seed funding right now. Anyway, they have a product, and I've shared this with, community services, but a product that is like a heat alarm inside of a unit. They made it specifically addressing mobile homes. So if this sensor sees an elevated temperature in a home for more than an hour, it sends out a text or notice to whoever's on their call list to let them know it's above 90 degrees in this home for over an hour. And it's a way of alerting caretakers or loved ones or someone who are outside the home that this home that someone's living in has a high temperature, and then they can maybe reach out and see what's going on with that person. So it's a way to preempt any heat-related deaths or illnesses. But I'll share the information. I've shared the information. I'll share it with Councilmember Spilsbury, especially with the mobile home parks, and hopefully they will find the funding very soon. There is a product out there, and it's just the seed funding that they need. So there might be an opportunity going into next year that we could implement this or offer this to some residents who would need it.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Lindsay, you still up?
Here we go, yes. Okay, the next budget adjustment is related to our street outreach team. This is a one-time request for $273,806. We have been able to utilize CDBG dollars, so the total contract amount does include the $301,000 of CDBG dollars as well. This service supports our heat relief, our public safety, and Mesa libraries. This is a team of 6 navigators. They do have vehicles, which are showcased here in the photos. I mention that because we want them to be very visible and present in the community, and we want the community in need to know, to make that association. They start to build trust and have that visual component when they see the cars driving around. They also have toolkits, resources that are funded through these dollars here. We did start this contract last year, and so for fiscal year 24-25, there was one-time funding, and this is where Councilmember Goforth, it was related to our budget last year as well for heat relief. And we are hoping to continue this service. This is really the baseline of services when you talk about homelessness and public safety in addressing homelessness, because these people are out on the street. They really work closely with folks that need assistance, but they also really provide support to our first responders, our officers that are out, oftentimes the first to engage with our homeless population, our park rangers that are doing that as well, and our firefighters that come upon folks that really need assistance, and we are trying to lead with those services. This team is what helps lead with the services and take the load off that social service piece where we're trying to find shelter for someone or another resource, or we come upon a family in a car and an officer's not going to just leave that family and not take care of the needs. So this team can be called in. They do a lot of proactive work on their own and are out daily, but they are called upon. They work closely with my team. And so what's really great about this contract and why it works for Mesa, we have had street outreach before. It was usually applied for through our CDBG competitive process, and just based on the agency's desire to help in the community. So if they applied for it, went through the process and received the funds, then they would mobilize and kind of act on their own, which was helpful to Mesa. But now this is more coordinated. We in Office of Homeless Solutions hold the contract. We work closely with all of the navigators. We know Austin, for example, on the left there. He's communicating with our team all the time. The navigators in the middle there are communicating with one of our officers and working in real time out in the field. And our team is really able to mobilize them and make this contract work for Mesa and all the needs that we know of, and really support our first responders directly. We also have one of our outreach navigators at the Mesa Library, so we know there's a lot of need there, and there's someone there to work with families that are coming into the Family Resource Center regularly. A lot of families are expressing they're on the edge of homelessness or they have become homeless. And so the navigator can just work with them directly and have engagement there. So it meets a lot of our different needs and really helps us be stronger in how we address homelessness.
Question.
Are these 6 navigators just in Mesa then, all the time?
Mayor and council member, yes, they are dedicated to Mesa and are only working in Mesa for Mesa.
And these navigators are different than the off-the-street navigators that might help them, or is it the same?
Mayor and council member, that's a great question. So previously in our off-the-streets contracts, we had street outreach navigators built into that contract, and they were part of that. In the last year, we have shifted that to allow our provider at Off the Streets to really just focus on the location in which they are providing services and the people there, and then building and support services. So that the Off the Streets navigators, they are still called navigators, but they're really case managers that are working on site. They're not leaving the property to do street outreach of any kind. They're really focused on case management and working with folks that are in that program at that location. And then this team does support street outreach and bringing people into that program if they're accepted.
Okay, so these ones are just out on the street to get them the resources. Then if they were put into the Off the Streets program, they would be assigned.
That's right. And they also come very well educated and resourced with many other places. So we cannot take everyone in our program. There's just not enough room. And not everyone is a good fit for that program. The navigators really know of all the services in Mesa, but in the region as well. And so they're constantly connecting. They're using their their expertise and training. They also have lived experience, so they're really pulling on that. And then they decide, based on the individual they're working with and their needs, where is the best place for them to go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Question.
Mr. Adams?
If we could look at that slide again that indicates the CDBG funding of 301. Just so I'm clear, so the budget request is 273. Is that being paid for by the 301,000, or is that in addition to? I'm just not clear on.
Mayor
on how-
and council member, that the total for this contract is the combined of those two. So it's 574,806 total. The CDBG is offsetting our general fund and contributing to the total amount there. So it's both of those figures combined.
So about 55, 60% of it is, okay, thank you.
Maybe put a plus sign between the two.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, next up is our Off the Streets program. So we do have a budget adjustment for this program. Before we get into those figures, we wanted to give some background on this program. This program has existed for 5 years, and in that time, we've served about 3,000 individuals. This program does support public safety and having a place for people to get off the streets and receive services. There is up to a 90-day stay opportunity for people. And within that time, there's a lot of structure. We have a lot of rules and requirements and a lot of case management and resources. So the goal is to come into the program, be in a safe space, and then also get wrapped in services. And each individual and family that we work with has different needs. And so they create their own housing plan and start to work with a case manager on that. We do have dedicated police presence on site, and we are really serving Mesa's most vulnerable people. So the folks that are represented in these photos really do show the people that we have served in the program. In my time, we have had a client as old as 92 years old and as young as 2 days old, where we had a pregnant mother come in, and she actually came in right before she gave birth to her child and was able to come back to a safe place with her newborn child. We also serve a lot of seniors through our program, and we see that there's a lot of more of that first-time homelessness. A lot of times it is seniors and families that are experiencing that. We've also had the gentleman there with his son. These are just representative pictures. They're not the actual people, but a family that was camping out in the desert with their son that had Down syndrome, and we were able to work with them, get them in the program into a safe place, and eventually get them into a much better situation of their own as they left the program. This is now the only Mesa shelter that I'm aware of that serves families, the only emergency shelter that serves families, so and women. So we've had the iHelp program closed down that did serve individual women. So it is a need that we're really fulfilling that is not existing in Mesa. This is a closed campus program, meaning that people cannot just walk up for services. They have to be referred into the program and accepted into the program. And we also allow pets in this program because that is a best practice in just helping people access the program. If they have been on the street with their pet, it's really their family member and a support system for them. So in this slide, we are showing side by side the two different program costs. So today we are at the Windermere Hotel, and we rent 85 rooms at that facility. We have been at that location for several years. When you look at the cost of the price for the room itself, as well as services, so that case management support and the wraparound services, it is $98.65 per room per day at that location. And then we are happy to say construction is moving along very well at what was formerly the Grand Hotel. We do call it Sun Air now. and we are anticipating to open that property in 2026. At that location, we can just be a lot more efficient and control some of those costs. Again, we are trying to show very much apples to apples comparison here. There are a few different services at each location, but for this comparison, we're really looking at price per room with those wraparound services. And at Sun Air location, it's $85.27. And then we're also showing the total cost of the program. So today at the Windermere, it is $3.1 million for that program. At the Sun Air, we have a budget of $2.5 million. That does include grab-and-go meals, which we've added to the program. That allows us to really serve the people that are in that program, serve them better by providing food. We have a lot of families and seniors, and so just having food available is something that we haven't had at the Windermere consistently. So that is showcased in the budget as well, and that's not included in that price per day because it is not included at the Windermere either. So 2.5 total for the Sun Air property. This slide is showing where we are today, where we had thought we might be going, and where we're recommending to go. So today, again, is the 3.1 million and the 85 rooms at our rented location. Prior to going through the budget adjustment and looking at all of the opportunities for funding, we were hoping to reduce the amount of rooms at the Windermere to about 40 rooms and $1.5 million budget. And as we brought Sun Air online, combining those two budgets for $4 million to serve the total population. So the idea was that we know we cannot serve everyone at the Sun Air, and we are limited on who we can serve there. So keeping rooms at the Windermere would allow us to continue serving everyone that we serve today. With budget constraints, we are recommending that we end our program at the Windermere as the Sun Air program comes on, really transitioning anyone and having it be a very fluid process. Anyone that is in that program that qualifies for the Sun Air program, we would transition them as that property opens, and we would then begin to restrict the type of client that we can serve, which I'll talk about in a minute on the next slide here. So this is really showcasing the total cost of the budget. So shifting from 3.1 million to 2.5 million. We do have ARPA dollars dedicated to the Windermere contract at this point. And as we transition to Sun Air, we would transition those funds to support that property and move out of Windermere. So we would transition those ARPA dollars to offset the general fund for the first year. So the first year is a one-time request of $900,000 offset by those ARPA dollars, and ongoing for beginning in 26, 27, it would be 2.5 million. And as we transition out of ARPA, we would be transitioning into general fund.
Questions, council?
Yes.
Mr. Adams.
Maybe not a good time for the question. I imagine your presentation isn't over yet, but so of the individuals served at either property, I assume that some may work, some may have possibly Social Security income or other forms of income. Are these individuals contributing anything to their stay, or is this entirely, are they required to contribute anything if they can, based on their ability, if they have any income?
Mayor and council member, thank you for that question. They are not required to contribute to the program while they're staying there. What they will do is create a housing plan with their case manager, and in that time, they're assessing all of their finances. We do have many people that have income, that are establishing employment through our program. And so a variety of circumstances, but there is a review of finances. Some people might discover they have different types of funding available. And so they work through that. They establish a savings plan while they're in our program. And for those people, we do have some people that are self-paying out of the program. So they use the program as a stepping stone and really to get some structure in place and connect to a proper housing opportunity that then they go and pay for on their own.
Has it ever been a consideration that if someone has, for example, Social Security income as a surviving spouse or past 65 or whatever, have we ever considered asking the beneficiaries of this program to contribute something, $10 a day, $20 a day, or has that ever been discussed?
Mayor and council member, I do not believe it has been discussed or explored.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say, Mayor and Councilmember Councilmember Adams, when we're looking at this, a lot of the programs that we do put them through would be things like saving up for those deposit on an apartment, for those utility deposits. And we do have assistance programs that we use for those. And so it's really packaging it all together, right? So if they're coming in and maybe halfway through they have a job, or we find out they're eligible for Social Security and maybe they're not receiving it for whatever reasons, or SNAP benefits and are not receiving it, that's part of this program, right? Is really to like get them out and resourced to all the different areas that they're eligible for, at the same time save up. The hope is that they could go in to, there were a self-pay situation, and that self-pay might mean they need to save up for those deposits. And now we don't need to use the assistance program for the deposit because we've allowed them to save up and use that for their deposit. So there's just a lot of people in different situations. Everybody's unique, but that is the goal. The goal is to be as self-sufficient when they leave as possible. It's not possible for all of our participants, but for those that can, that would be a great path for them.
I understand the basis of the situation. Is this, how do surrounding communities, Phoenix Metro area, is this modeled the same way, or are there different standards? I'm just curious how we compare to other communities.
Yeah, Mayor and council member, I believe, I do not know any that are self-paid. It is typically that they are in financial distress, and so this program is allowing them to create some structure if they do have income, to create a savings so that they can do first and last month's rent or whatever is needed to get them into the next place. So I don't believe there are any other communities that do that, but I can look into that.
Are you good, Councilmember Adams?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, I hit mute there too soon. Thank you.
Just on that note, I assume that helping someone become self-reliant, especially with rents the way they are, the first, most tenants or landlords require first and last month rent. And if the rent is a couple $1,000s, I'm just going to use round numbers then to save that up because their stay is at 90 days there, correct? It'd be hard for them to, even with Social Security and other things, to acquire that type of wealth in order to get an apartment and be self-reliant. So I would consider this program like 100% subsidizing the individuals in there to help them get on their feet. Am I kind of correct?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
But at the end of the day, I know it's an expensive program, and we'll have to work through this as we move forward, budgeting-wise.
Mayor, and I think to your point, and Lindsay articulated this, but it's not that these 90 days come with no expectations. It's the work that they have to put in through their case managers and the collaborative effort that they're working through with staff to show that they are trying to get on their feet, trying to look for long-term stable housing. So it's so the requirement is that they go through that and that they work diligently with the case managers during that time. So you're exactly right. It's a short term. It's an emergency shelter, no more than 90 days, but that is the requirement we have on them at that point.
Sure.
So, Mayor and Council, it's as Mr. Butler said, it's not an automatic 90 days. When they enter the program, they don't just automatically receive 90 days of housing. It is up to 90 days based on their progress. So they do need to progress with their case manager. They need to have a plan Everyone's individual, they have an individual plan, but every week it's looked to see, are they progressing in their plan? If they're not progressing in their plan, then they cannot continue in the program.
I think it's important to mention too, just to remind people, we have the community court, our homeless court system that's working with a lot of these people too, and holding them accountable and moving them towards accountability to be able to be self-sufficient at the end too. So having recently visited there again a few weeks ago, just was a good reminder for me of how they're being helped really closely by the navigators, which I think is the key to why this is a successful program, but that they have accountability as well. And then when they graduate from the program, often they get fines and things wiped away, which then helps them be able to be more self-sufficient. And so I think it's amazing what they're doing.
I know you have the statistics for this, so the data, so maybe in the future include that as well. You'll probably present that next time around about the individuals in the housing off the streets, you know, those that are successful graduates of the program and those who are not.
And Mayor, we'd be happy to come back and do a presentation just on all of these services, because they do intertwine with each other, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the Off the Streets program for the city of Mesa is a program that has particular demographics that Lindsay's going to talk about here in a minute. And then our community court is a separate program and has different navigators that are familiar with the court and the processes and what they need to go through that. And that's a separate program, but there is a little bit of overlap, right?
Yeah.
And then we have our street outreach, and they know everything in the region and all the different services. And so it's really looking at the city of Mesa and saying, when you meet somebody, they have individual needs, and what's the best program and what's the best route to help them to become self-sufficient. And so we do have a lot of different programs that intertwine, so I think that would be great to come back to council and really give an overview of all of the programs, how they work and how they work together.
Well, it sounds like you worked yourself into a presentation.
I usually do.
Thank
Let's
you,
go for it.
Candace.
So the fiscal impact this year is the 900,000 offset by what was planned for the Windermere. Is this again covered by ARPA for 25, 26? Is the 900,000?
The 900,000 is the impact to the general fund. The rest of it is covered by ARPA. So we don't have, the cost, as we move into Sun Air, the full cost of the program, property and case management and everything is the 2.5 million. For next year, it will be offset by the ARPA funds that we still have remaining, so the impact is only $900,000.
Okay. And this is, these are all the, I lost the slide. The human services that you're going through is the adjustment that we saw on slide 8, correct? Is that what you're between 24, 25 for this new fiscal budget? These are the programs that account for that increase in the budget that you're asking for human services. Is that what we're going over? Okay.
Yes,
just
so
wanted to make
Mayor and
clear.
Councilmember Goforth, if we look back on the slide we had on slide 8, when we were talking
Yeah.
about that increase and when we were going to talk about those, if you heard Michelle had mentioned that their kind of base level is 3.4. We have vacancy savings and so forth that happened during the year, but their base budget is 3.4. Take the 3.4, then we have the $900,000 impact to Sun Air. We have the $274,000 impact to the navigators, $90,000 for the heat relief. And then we have some capital funds that are moving from this year to next year, $700,000 for the furnishing of Sun Air. All those together add up to the 25-26 proposed budget.
Okay.
Mr. Heredia.
Yeah, Candace, you mentioned in the presentation, if I think based on my previous comment on adding on the heat relief data, cost per service, if we can lean into more on data of how these programs help, it's obvious that it helps people based on what Lindsay mentioned as far as the personal stories. I think those are very important to highlight and make sure people understand why we're investing in these types of programs, but lean into more of the data of how much these programs actually help us save potentially, like community courts, the community court program and other calls, anything that we can share, because we sometimes hear why are we investing in homeless hotel, right? Or why are we investing in heat relief programming, but the reason why is because if we don't, it's going to cost us way more, right? Based on, responding from our police and fire or other pieces. And I think if we can highlight a little bit more of those types of data sets in the investments that we're making, I think hopefully the public and our folks have a better scope of why the investment of what we're doing has an impact in our city, not just families, but in our resources, right, that we have to spend out. And so that's just something I think we could do a better job on, is just how we identify the scope and potential savings in these types of programs, especially in I think community services, right? How much it impacts families, kids' lives, and future generations, right? Future forward kind of things that it's hard to quantify, I think, sometimes, but it's so important to maintain, structure for our neighborhoods and things like that folks might complain about, that, oh, why aren't you doing things on homeless? Like, oh, well, we are, but we have limited resources, right? And it's impacting this way, right? If we had more, well, we will impact more people. So just a comment there. I would love to, get into more of those details once we have a presentation on those things. So,
Mayor, Councilmember, thank you. We'll put all of that together and show all the interrelations of all the programs that we have.
thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, council member.
I'd like to add on a follow-up presentation that we also look at the eviction rates and the homelessness rates when we look at what we're doing, so that we can see what those trends are and the populations that we're talking about in relationship to our services. So just looking more comprehensively at the population impacts in our community and, how we're addressing that as far as percentage. Thank you.
You bet. They're writing their notes down right now.
I'm going to look at the recording. This final slide, Mayor, is really showcasing what continues in the program elements that I spoke about earlier. All of the structure, the program management, property management, the closed campus. There will be transportation to help people get to the services that they need that are off-site, and that police presence and pet-friendly environment are staying. What is new is that we have more control of this property. So if you have seen the Windermere property, it is very expansive. There are no property delineations around, there's no fence or borders around their property, and each individual room has a front and back door to it. Our new property is a much smaller footprint. We do have a property fence around, so we can really control who's coming. There's a lot of walk-through traffic at the other property. We will not have any of that at this property. And we have a controlled entrance to the actual property, but also to the rooms itself. It's an older motel model where you walk in and then there's a hallway and all the room doors are interior. So that will change things a lot for us and allow us to provide just a better environment for those that we're serving and have more control of that environment. And it will help us be a good neighbor to the community as well. With the council use permit, there are some things that are required of the program. And so one of those things is that we are really targeting who we serve at this property. We can only serve seniors, families, or those that have been impacted by domestic violence. And so the data that is showcased here is showing the orange pie chart there is showing of those that we have served at the Windermere program in 2024, about 80% of those that we have served would qualify for the Sun-Air program, and about 20% would not. So the 20% are single men and women that do not fall within one of the categories that I've described. So those folks, there is the East Valley Men's Center that will be made available to those single men. And any women that don't qualify, we would have to work with our street outreach teams and help find them other opportunities within the region. But you can see that a high percentage of those that we already are serving would qualify for the SunAir program. We know that's about there's exactly 820 people that have been served that are represented there in the 2024 data. And we know that 471 family members have been served. 234 of those individuals were children that were served in our program with their families. We know that we have had 84 seniors served in that time frame, and then many that have experienced domestic violence as well. And oftentimes those are overlapping designations. We have seniors that are experiencing domestic violence or grandparents that are coming in with their grandchildren into the program. So the need is there, is what I'm trying to show you, and unfortunately is continuing. And we are able to really build this environment for the people that are being served as well. So at the current property, we take what we get and try to make it as good as possible. Here, we've really structured the environment to serve the need. So we will have a playground, so the children will have an opportunity to have a place to play and just an outdoor environment where people can be safe and engage in the property. But also just have a nice intake room where we can really make the program flow the way it needs to. And we will expand. We are restricting the number of rooms, but making them all family friendly and making as the best use of the space, really maximizing the space.
Question, Ms. Spilsbury?
Question/comment. I, as I think everyone knows, was a big supporter of this program. That's why I voted for it, even though it was in my district and there was some opposition. When I would be out talking to nonprofits and faith-based organizations, every single one, 100% of people I talked to were very supportive of this and would say, we need 5 of these, we need 6 of these, we need 8 more of these, right? Because they're the ones that are on the ground working with these people and they see the need. So there's I think, absolute evidence to show how much this is in need. I was, with previous conversations that I've had with Mr. Brady, knowing that there was always that option to keep some rooms open in the Windermere was a good thing for me. And I get that we can't do it all. And so I can see why some of these hard decisions have to be made. I think when we decided to switch the SunAir just to the most vulnerable populations, I think in my head, I've just put single women in there too, because it never occurred to me that women who would be considered more vulnerable than men would not be part of that population. And so looking at the chart and seeing 5% are single women and knowing that we have the East Valley Men's Center, but that we don't have something like that specifically for single women, that's a huge concern to me. And I know that when we voted on this, we voted on the elderly and veterans and domestic violence victims. And I think I just assumed we would include single women in that. Can we add single women to that? Why can't we add single women to the most vulnerable population for SunAir? I don't know if 5% of 800, I don't know how many people that is. And I mean, we're already reducing 20 rooms. So maybe we wouldn't even have room, but that is a huge concern to me that we're not including single women.
Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, the demographics that we're looking at here on who is eligible for SunAir is part of the council use permit. And so that was adopted by council as the stipulations to receive the council use permit. So it would be as the definitions as stated in that.
Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, but remember those single women who fall within one of those categories would be included. So if you were a single woman who's a domestic violence victim, you would be included. If you were a senior single woman, you would be included. Just as a single man would be in those categories as well. So it's not that we're not serving that population at all. we are, but they do have to qualify for one of those council use permitted.
Women are just way more vulnerable than men on the streets. We all know this, especially if they're young. And I wish I would have caught this in my brain back when we did that council use permit so that we could have included that too. So I guess I'm asking, what can we do about that?
Well, Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, because we're not having them enter into the, at this point in time, once we set up Sun Air, if nothing were to change, it doesn't mean that we're not serving the person. We're not serving them through this Off the Streets program at Sun Air. And so we still have our outreach folks. We still have the regional resources, and we'll still be looking to try to serve them. Just wouldn't be at this particular location under the current guidelines.
And so we would have to go through the entire council use permit to change that?
We could do that.
I mean,
Yeah.
We can, we would have to go through that process.
I don't know how the rest of my council members feel, but I would like to make it be an option at least so that we could serve them in our own community. If we're gonna spend this kind of money, I wanna make sure those young girls and single women are also protected. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of other options for them.
And Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, and again, we're gonna keep working on this, right?
Okay.
Because, so Windermere is not scheduled to close down until we open up Sun Air. The transition plan was going to be through the end of this fiscal year, or this calendar year, so the end of December of '26 would be the last time that we would let someone come into the program who would not be able to go to Sun Air. So that by the time we open up Sun Air, we're estimating a March, the construction will be done in January. We're estimating a March opening by the time we get everything set up and ready to go. And that we would take everyone from Sun Air over to, from Windermere over to Sun Air on that day, moving day, if you want to say.
That qualify for it.
And so the goal would be that we would take everybody we're taking today through December 31st of 2025. And then as of January 1st of 2026, we would only accept those who were qualified for Sun Air. So that still gives us considerable length of time between now and the end of December to identify resources and what we want to do with those populations who are not able to go to Sun Air.
So you're also saying, though, we have until March of 2026 to possibly change that in a council use permit?
Yes.
So Mayor, maybe I could suggest if we know we're coming back per the discussion today to have a
was gonna
more
mention
in-depth
that.
discussion on that, we could try to get some direction from council maybe at that time when we bring some more data and information forward to the council and could have that conversation at that time.
Mayor?
Ms. Duff?
I see the percentages on the Off the Streets program participants. What is the total number when we're looking at these percentages? I just want to kind of have in my mind what 5% represents.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember, it is 820 total people served for this data. So it's 37 women that fall into that category of the 5%.
And that is from last year, 2024.
From 2024 calendar year.
Right. Are there any nonprofit partners that we have that specifically assist single women, homeless women?
Councilmember and Mayor and Councilmember, there are, so again, we can serve with our other programs. We would work directly with women in need that may not fall within these categories and assess where another safe place for them may be, whether that's in Mesa or in the region. There are other programs. Unfortunately, we have lost the iHelp program, which was the primary program that was shelter, emergency shelter for women.
And the
Sorry about
iHelp.
that. Okay.
Is that county?
And
What's the iHelp
So-
program?
Can I help?
okay.
Sorry, Jenna, Councilmember Duff, I was following up on your question on, I heard iHelp
Yeah,
was lost, and
yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yes, so Mayor and Vice Mayor, iHelp was a faith-based program where churches would volunteer to host families, or women in this case. So that it would travel kind of from church to church every few
It was-
days. It was run by Lutheran Social Services.
Okay, and that went away when?
I believe that stopped in October of last year.
So it's very recent.
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you, Councilmember Duff, for indulging me.
Also, one other question, looking at the Windermere and the Sun Air. So today we have 85 rooms at Windermere and that's serving 874 people. So would we assume going forward for this next year into 26, I guess with the 64 rooms at Sun Air, that we would proportionally reduce the number of people we serve. So we'd be a couple hundred people short of where we were when we had the federal funding.
Mayor and council
Is that
member,
correct?
so the total number that's showing for 2024 was 820 people. We will have a 25% reduction in rooms. And so we anticipate we can serve, it really varies depending on the number of people. We have families that have 9 children at times and 1 children at other times. So it's hard to predict, but we would imagine we could serve about 700 people annually, up to 700 at Sun Air.
Okay, I'm with Julie on looking at adjusting the council use permit. I too assumed it included single women, so if we can look at that and appreciate it. Thank you.
You hit on a couple points that I wanted to talk about. One, Sun Air is 64 rooms, and the Windermere had 85 that we could access. But Windermere clearly is operating differently than Sun Air. Sun Air is more restricted, as we just discussed. But what's the time frame on the Windermere? Is it 90 days, just like the Sun Air is going to be? Is it?
Yeah,
So it's the same operational model
Vice
as
Mayor,
far
yes,
as
up to
time?
90 days. Yes,
Okay.
the program model will be the same at both sites.
But was the Windermere also utilized by public safety, police notably, to be able to take somebody off the streets, out of the park, off the streets, out from behind a dumpster, and be able to house them in an emergency with a voucher? Were we able to do that at Windermere?
Mayor and Vice Mayor, that is not the model now. So one element that is at the Windermere that we do not have at Sun Air that you may be referring to is an emergency cot. We have a small congregate space where we have emergency cots so that we can assist our first responders in those immediate needs. It's meant to be an intake, kind of a triage area where we can get them a bed or a cot for the night and then help them assess where the next place may be best for them to go. It may be a room with us in our program. It may be at another program location.
Okay, and so what happens to that program?
If we are to leave the Windermere, we don't have that space and we are not able to accommodate. A lot of it is single men that have that need.
Okay,
Or
and
that
the
are-
men's shelter, county men's shelter has some of that availability, or do we have dedicated cots, emergency cots there?
So Mayor and Vice Mayor at the East Valley Men's Center, they have cots that are dedicated to Mesa specifically.
Okay. The concern I have is in looking at this from a budget perspective, because we're really looking at a budget, is that the Sun Air's model and capacity is different. Its capacity is significantly reduced, as opposed to the Windermere. We're going to lose, I think, some of that flexibility and ability to triage folks, and that's an important element, I believe, of any of the homeless programs, is to be able to get people off the street, out of the parks, out from behind businesses, and then get them into the locations so we can start into those, triaging those services that are needed. And if we're going to have a discussion on this anymore, I think we need to figure out how we budget for that and how we provide that service.
Mayor and Vice Mayor, You're right. We, in some sense, lose some flexibility, but at the same time, we're just having to lean in to the NGOs and the other community groups and organizations that are providing these services just with the budget constraints that we have. So you're right. Some of that, not all of that, certainly we're providing a service, but the need for to have an emergency cot was driven by the Ninth Circuit decision that's now no longer the law of the land. Now, we still want to be able to provide services to those individuals like you referenced, but that's where I think under our current circumstances, we're going to have to look at the nonprofit community to really help us in that regard.
Yeah, but the issue is that those nonprofits rely heavily on a lot of the pass-through grants that are coming through the city. We are starting to rely on those grants for some of the services, and there's no guarantee that those grants are going to continue on in perpetuity. They could be heavily cut back. So, sounds like a task force problem. I mean, on this.
Well, one side note is contractually, we have an agreement with the East Valley Men's Shelter for 50% of their beds for men. And hopefully they're living up to their terms of the contract for availability for people you're talking about, unhoused men, for example, have a place to go. I understand the women component of that. And I think we should get, approximately some more data and stuff and come back to council to get direction with that. So I think these are all great points that we have, but we want to make sure, and it's all about capacity too. Lindsay, to your point, if a family shows up with 9 or 10 people, family, and they need a place to shelter in Wyndham or Sun Air, then we have a person, just one person in one room and 10 people over here. How do you flex that, so to speak? So I think those are some of the conundrums we'll be working on in the future going through this process. So I appreciate your presentation. If there's no other questions, you want to move on?
I just have one comment, if you don't mind, Mayor and
Yeah.
Vice Mayor, to your point. So although we may be losing some of those services, we're looking at how we use our street navigation teams. And so we've been able to expand their schedule and the hours of operation. So they will be able to go out with park rangers up till 11 p.m. at night when they are serving. They're running into more people that may be trying to camp in a park. And rather than just run them off and have them exit the park, a navigator, a street outreach navigator can work with them right then and there and maybe not get them an immediate bed, but there's an immediate connection so that tomorrow they can maybe get into another program and not just be exiting the park without services. So we're looking at how we can enhance our services in other ways if we're losing those beds.
Yeah, we need to figure out the coordination of that, and if there's a fiscal impact, we have to discuss it, because because we have the enforcement authority now to move them out of public spaces, they still have to go somewhere, right? And that somewhere, it feels like it's getting smaller and smaller all the time, and that's not gonna work. So I think there's a lot more discussion needs to happen on this topic, particularly when it comes to that emergency triage entry level sheltering.
I guess I would just ask, that Ninth Circuit opinion was fairly new, 2020, is that when it came out, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, so what did we do prior to that? What was the model?
Mayor, council member,
The
I
Ninth
mean,
Circuit Court was just like a couple years ago, was it?
well, the Supreme Court decision rescinding overturning the Ninth Circuit decision. I think, though, to the council member's question, Mayor, is that, we really saw a dramatic uptick in homelessness during the pandemic and the years since. And so certainly there were those community services, the NGOs, Men's Shelter, CAS, other regional facilities that did this. I think it was just, and Lindsay, please correct me on this, but it was really the dramatic uptick in this issue that really occurred over the last 5 to 6 years that has driven
Additional need.
the additional
Okay.
need.
And those, I know are the numbers coming down? I know we've talked about this a little bit, but not as drastically as they went up over the course.
Yeah.
And then Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, then it's not, it's not just Mesa, right? I mean,
For
it's,
sure.
it's across the country.
Yeah.
That everybody has been dealing with this for the last probably 4 or 5 years, since the pandemic, and then with the increased rents, and those types of things, where we're just seeing more people, as Lindsay mentioned, we're seeing a lot more first-time homelessness that's happening because something happens, a medical bill or a loss of job, and now they're on the street because they can't make the rent. So we're seeing that a lot more in the last few years, so the demand is higher. And so that's why we do have different programs, because we do have different and shifting demographics about who is in need. And that's why we do want to approach it with multiple programs, multiple types of services and levels of services. And not everybody stays, the 90 days in this particular program, depends on what their needs are. It could be that they have family members in another state and we need to help them with that transportation of someone who can take them in, but they don't have the transportation to get there. That might be a shorter stay. Everybody's unique. And so, but it is in the last 4 or 5 years has really been the demand has gone up. And that's why we're now reacting to it and setting up these programs. We're very grateful that we had federal funds to pilot some of these, because that's where a lot of these came from, is we were able to pilot them and start looking at them and start realizing what works and what doesn't work. And that's one of the things we saw with our outreach teams, right, is that we were very happy that agencies were coming forward and wanting to help us, and we put them through our human services funding or our federal grant funding. And then we started to realize, well, this is not very efficient. We have 3 different organizations doing 3 different things, and it's very hard to coordinate. And so we took it in-house, where they're still doing it, but we do an RFP for a contract. We have control of it. We set the parameters, the performance. We ensure that we audit it, make sure they're doing what we expect them to do. So over the years, we've had the need, but over the years, we've become very more efficient at how we do it, and more strategic at how we approach it.
Mayor, a quick comment, please.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
I think yourself and the vice mayor have indicated that we probably should study this further in another setting or forum, and I would agree with that. My comment is, now that the federal funding has run out, we obviously need to plan to shoulder what piece of this burden we feel is appropriate as a city. But the overall picture that I see is this is a valley-wide, this is a regional problem, and I don't think we can address this entirely in a vacuum. There are many agencies, we're all aware of this, that are trying to address this problem. So I think we need to look at this from a 50,000-foot level, in other words, a valley-wide level, because it just doesn't work with one community pushing its homeless to another and back and forth. I'm not suggesting we do that, or that we have done that. But the other comment I have, Councilmember Goforth asked, what were we doing prior to the original Supreme Court decision? I think we should look at that. What were we doing 10, 15 years ago, and were there any effective solutions then? So that's all I got. I know you want to move on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, did you have you're touching the, go ahead.
Actually, it was ironic because I was going to touch upon something Councilmember Adams just said, and actually something Heredia said in the question of Goforth. So 10 or 15 years, we used to cite a lot of cases. There were some people that had hundreds of cases in the court. And so then we created the community court, and the community court, so we saw some savings, because we'd have individuals that we would cite and release, and they'd come back and they'd have 100 cases in a year. And so we've seen some savings. And what happened is because of the success of community court, we realized, well, wait, the only way to get into community court is to be cited. But there's other people that aren't getting cited that we could provide these services to before they get cited. And so we're thinking about how do you sort of take community court out of community court and just provide it to other homelessness people. And then ironically at the same time, the Ninth Circuit came out with its decisions, COVID happened, we got First CARES dollars and then ARPA money, which actually allowed us to fund basically the extension of community court outside of community court. And so that's sort of what's happened over the last 15 years.
And we have a lot, just a comment, the issue is funding, right? We would like to take care of it all, but that's unrealistic. And so it's really about resources and prioritizing the resources. How much can we do? How much dent can we make? and yet continue to serve the rest of the city with the rest of the services that we provide. So it's just a balance of resources when it comes down to it.
Did you have a question?
No, I think my comment was like, we tried, before I came on council, looking at this issue, we tried a huge enforcement piece, right? And it just wasn't working, right? As far as we needed to figure out different solutions for this. Though enforcement for some people does need to happen, right? We understand that, but just alone enforcement, having PD cite people over and over and over and over, just creating that cycle of just where you're not getting anything done. I think that's what Mesa was doing before. And so we needed to comprehensively think about how do we tackle these issues in both the enforcement side, but also finding solutions on how we can move people along the ladder of life, right? So, and then what we're seeing is other communities, like Councilmember Adams mentioned, having a regional issue, other communities adopting best practices, right? Like community courts and adopting these navigators. Phoenix has, navigator programs and other communities. So, ensuring that we look at these best practices and improve upon and add where these strategies are working. So just that comment. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for mentioning that.
Okay,
I'd like to chime in too. I serve on the Maricopa County Human Services and Community Initiatives Committee. And we are a collective of all the Valley cities that work together and discuss these issues, homelessness being the largest part of it. And we talk about our programs and such. During the COVID time, Natalie Lewis, a former deputy city manager, worked very closely with the county and collectively had created the Continuum of Care, which is a model that has been shared among all the counties. There's a website on it about best practices. There's a deep dive in learning and executing the program and sharing that information with our other cities. And you will find the other cities have very similar programs, whether it's the community court and the navigators, trying to do a hotel, whatever this is. So there is a great deal of sharing of information as well as looking at national practices, because this is not a Phoenix Metro problem. This is a national problem. Homelessness and the dramatic increases. Evictions, we'll look at the current numbers, but since COVID, evictions went up like 50 to 70% annually. So with the increase of rents and no moratorium and no more monies to help people with rent, from the dramatic inflationary increases we saw in housing. So we are at a point that it is not declining, it is not going away, but we are becoming more sophisticated in how we address it. And like Councilmember Heredia mentioned, just citing and putting you through the courts like we used to do it at this volume is not a solution. And I think we've become better at it. We have a lot more to learn, of course, and we'll try to be more strategic as we learn more and more on how to help the most vulnerable. There's no way we're even making a huge impact by what we're doing. It makes an impact that's very, very important. There's 820 some individuals last year that were able to get that assistance to move on. We are making impact, but it is very small into the total picture of what's going on in the homelessness and evictions and people choosing maybe their drugs over housing. There's a lot of choices out there, and there's a lot of work yet to be done. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Where did we leave off? Are we ready to summarize?
Yes, we're done, Mayor. We wanted to just highlight, again, this is what we do every day. And we have that photo of the mayor and other council members celebrating National Volunteer Week as well there. So
Great, thank you.
if there's any further questions, we're happy to answer.
You're almost at 100 minutes. You want to go one more?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
68th minute is where you want to scrub to for your notes.
Okay.
How do we?
All right, next we'll hear item 1B is presentation on the library department budget. Thank you, everybody, for being so patient. All right, Polly and your team. We'll just
ready
wait.
for us?
We'll pause just a few minutes. Well, Ms. Duff and Mr. Adams, we're taking a little break here.
No, that's not how this works.
Okay, we're back from break. Thank you, everybody. We're ready to start item 1B, presentation on the library department's budget. Polly and your team, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Polly Bonnet, and I'm the Library Director here in Mesa, and I'm here with Tony Garvey. He's our Management Assistant, too, and he will be presenting the budget portion of the presentation. So as we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about our public purpose. The Mesa Public Library will be celebrating our 120th anniversary next year. We had our first library open in 1906, and we continue in the tradition and spirit of the very first library that was opened in the United States 294 years ago by Benjamin Franklin in Philadelphia. And that sought to foster access to ideas, information, and conversations with one another. And we continue in that community building spirit today. So that brings me to our current public purpose, which is to support lifelong learning, empower individuals, and strengthen our community. And I do want to take a minute to thank our library staff and all their various roles for what they do every day to make this mission possible.
Especially the volunteers.
The volunteers, right, this week, they play a huge role in that. We're very thankful. All right, so during this presentation, I'll be focusing on just a few of our current programs. We are having a banner year here at the library. We are bringing online 2 large programs, and we are currently underway for a year-long reading initiative called Mesa Reads. And all of these programs support our strategic plan priorities to create a great customer experience, to support community literacy, and to increase engagement and access. And that allows us to be responsive to our community's needs. And the first one here, Mesa Reads. So thank you, Mayor, for issuing the proclamation earlier in this year for the Year of Reading, and to our council members who attended our kickoff events for Mesa Reads. Mesa Reads is a year-long reading initiative that promotes literacy, and this is in partnership with some of our other city partners, the Education and Workforce Office, Mesa Public Schools, and other literacy partners in Mesa. And one of the reasons we wanted to focus on this year-long reading initiative is to talk about the benefits of reading 15 minutes a day. Literacy provides the foundation of lifelong learning, and it's a critical skill that contributes to your personal, your social, economic, and academic well-being. And we do believe that a city that reads succeeds, and we've already surpassed our goal of reading 1 million minutes. We're at 2 million minutes. So we've increased that goal as a city initiative to read 5 million minutes this year. So if you haven't read the minutes you have set for your goal, we do encourage you to download our Beanstack app, and that's where you can join the challenge and record your minutes read. And I'd like to give a shout out to Mesa Public Schools. We have 72 of 84 schools participating in this program. Right now, Edison and Holmes Elementary Schools are competing for the top spot with number of readers, and we thought a little friendly competition never hurt to increase those reading goals. So hopefully they're listening, or someone at the schools are.
Do council reports count?
Yes. If you're reading them, absolutely. Good. We'll make sure you can record those minutes.
Time to log them.
All right, and another event that we had this year, Gateway Library Beam Signing event. Thank you, Vice Mayor Summers, for this idea. It was a very powerful moment. And at the library, we have been talking a lot about the power of moments and these brief experiences that might elevate and change us and provide peak moments in our lives. And this was definitely one of those events. We had almost 900 people attend to sign or to make their mark on their new library. It was really incredible. A highlight of the day was hearing the enthusiasm and excitement for this new library and anticipating the opening. And I just want to share a couple of stories because it was really special for me in my career to hear the importance of the library in everyone's life and why they were looking forward to the opening. We had a retired couple who wanted to know how they could volunteer to give back to Mesa because they had raised their family coming to the library, the Dobson Ranch Library, and they wanted to be able to give back. We had a little girl, 12 years old, who wanted to find out how she could get a job at the library. And we did say she'd have to wait a few years, but in a couple of years, she'd be eligible to volunteer. So she could come back when she's 14, but use the library until then. And then a little boy, this was my favorite. He approached me in his Star Wars shirt, and he asked me if we would have books on Star Wars. And I said, for you, we absolutely will. We'll make sure of it. And the smile on his face was just a celebration of the memories that have yet to be made, the connections that will be fostered for many years to come at this library. So we're very excited about that.
A couple more came in asking for the Star Wars thing.
Yes. That's a hit. We make sure that we're going to have a lot of those books on the shelf. And then our Read Runner, we were able to launch this at Celebrate Mesa on April 12th. And our goal with our Read Runner Bookmobile is to bring literacy to a neighborhood near you. The Bookmobile will have 1,500 books, and we can curate those collections based on the neighborhoods that we'll be stopping at on our route. We'll have ThinkSpot equipment, a seed library, culture passes, and this just allows us to meet more residents in Mesa. And as Vice Mayor Summers said, his grandson checked out a book. The first book checkout on the Read Runner, that was also a power of a moment. We took the picture of the young boy who checked out his book, and he was talking to his family about how excited he was that he was the very first person to check out a book on the Bookmobile.
So borderline stealing.
You did. It's valid, it's legitimate. And I do want to mention, we had 588 people attend or check out our Bookmobile and meet with our outreach staff that day. So that was pretty exciting. We will have 12 stops on the route, and that information will be posted this next month so you can see where those routes are.
Polly, yeah.
Do you have
Okay.
a question?
Was how do people find the Read Runner?
Yes, we'll post that on our website and the dates and times that we'll have those, the Bookmobile at those stops. So right now, we have some partnerships with our parks and then other facilities like Astor Downtown, Astor Red Mountain, Countryside Park, Riverview Park, Gene Autry, and Gateway or Eastmark, the Great Park, until we open the library. All right, and we're also undergoing a master plan process over this past year. So I want to thank our city council if you participated in providing feedback, or city management, other city departments, and our staff, and of course our community stakeholders. You're helping us shape the vision and imagine services in Mesa, library services, for the next 20 years. So this is an overview, a map of our current locations and their service areas. And that red area there on the map is currently the underserved areas of Mesa or outside of our library service areas for our branches. It's about 28% of Mesa residents, and that master plan will be complete next month. So we'll be bringing that back to you to report on. And this is a fun story I get to share. MPL goes national. So the Kelly Clarkson Show reached out to us. They saw something that we posted on social media, a program that we had at our Red Mountain Library location, a stuffy sleepover, which was very sweet. And the kids loved it. Some were a little concerned about leaving their stuffed animals overnight, but they got a full report on what happened. So that was a lot of fun when they picked them up. And our former marketing team member, Veronica, did a great job highlighting or shining a light on Mesa to the tune of about 1.3 million viewers. And it was a positive and uplifting story for us just to share the power of libraries, the programs we have available, and also shine a light on Mesa. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about our performance measures here. These are our new library cards issued. So to give you a little bit of a baseline, we have just over 112,000 registered borrowers. And we expect to issue 33,000 library cards this year. This is important because it's your first step towards using our library resources and all the opportunities that presents. You can also access our Mesa Express Library, which is fully automated. And that's proven very popular in the community. And some of the ways that we've prioritized engaging our residents and finding new ways to provide easy access is by e-cards. We started that program about a year and a half ago, and that's proven very popular. It allows you to download a library card and have instant access to our digital material. We also have our Mesa Public Schools partnership. So when parents register their children for school, they can also register for a library card at that time and opt in. Right now, that is through third grade, K through third, and we will be expanding that third to sixth grade in June. And we have issued about 6,000, a little over 6,000 cards through that program. And then, of course, our outreach team plays a huge part in reaching new users and sharing the benefits of a library card. All right, our book checkouts. Here on this chart, you can see our digital use, which is in blue, and our orange, which is our print material. This is one area that continues to grow and recover from the post-pandemic use that we saw at its height. One thing that to note is during the pandemic, of course, there was a greater reliance on digital material because our libraries were closed. And as we reopened and people were coming back into the library, that use continued. So prior to the pandemic, we saw about a ratio of 75% of print use and 25% of digital. Now we're closer to 65% of print use and 35% digital. But I will say that one thing we always hear from our residents, our library patrons, when we do surveys, this was included most recently in the master plan survey, is our residents want more books. And that's the top thing they always ask for, is more books in the collection. So that's something that our collection support team is very mindful of, and they do a great job in being responsive to what our residents are looking for. Okay, and library visitors. So this has not quite bounced back to pre-pandemic levels, but we continue to see growth year over year, and that's positive for us. We knew that it would take some time to grow that user base back, and that's a trend that we're seeing nationally, not just here in Mesa. We're seeing this across the county in libraries, and also it is a national trend. So part of this is we're trying to build that user base back and determine what is impacting that behavior that on visiting the library. There's been a re-emphasis or focus on community engagement teams, outreach teams, bookmobiles. More libraries are bringing back bookmobiles so we can reach into the community and re-engage with residents who may not have used us in the past, are new to the area, or need a reminder of our updated services. Some of the ways we're doing that to invite and attract our users back is by refreshing our spaces. Some of that dip in use, we had some spaces at various libraries that were closed for renovations. And so our attendance dropped a little bit, and it takes some time to get the message out that we are open and those renovations are complete. And then, of course, we focus on our partnerships. Our First Things First Family Resource Center is shown there, and that's been a great partnership for us to strengthen those community connections and reach more users. So this is one of our exciting programs that we always have a great time talking about because it's our first library in 30 years. And as mentioned with the Gateway Beam signing, there's a lot of enthusiasm around it, and we are being very intentional about celebrating milestones tied to the library and opening the library. So just a quick overview with where we stand on the project. Upcoming milestones. Right now, we're in process of hiring our Gateway staff, and we plan to be complete with bringing on our Gateway staff by June of 2025. So right now, they're assisting with all of the preparations for opening that new branch and what goes into that. And then from April this month through August, our Gateway team is attending outreach events. They're going to build those connections in the Eastmark area, the Southeast Mesa area, so we can have those partnerships ready to go when the library is open. And it is still on track to be complete in August of this year, where we would move into the branch in August and September. And then we are planning our opening in the fall of this year. Yeah. We're hoping for October 18th, but just to be safe.
All right, and now moving on to our budget slide. So looking at our two core business processes, the library resources is our first one. That includes our administration and then our collection support services. So that's that team that is procuring the books, who's processing the books and making sure that they're ready to go out onto the floor into each of our branches. Our library programs and services, that's our front-facing staff. So that's our librarians, our library assistants, our pages, our supervising teams, our volunteer services, and our technical support services. So that's how we break down the budget between those two core business processes. So looking at our year-end actuals for last year, so this is fiscal year 23-24, we had a total expenditures of $8.8 million. We did realize about $700,000 in vacancy savings due to promotions into, this was the first time we brought on our outreach team. So as individuals were moving into the outreach team, their positions were vacated. When there's not a position, those savings do accrue over time. So we did see about $700,000 in vacancy savings just last year, and with a year-end actual of $8.8 million. Moving on to our revised budget of fiscal year 24-25, we do see a big jump there. The biggest reasons for that are the furnitures, fixtures, equipment, and everything that takes to outfit the library branch, our newest library branch, Gateway. So it's about $3.4 million for the opening day collection, the shelving, all the furniture, the staff cubicles, everything that goes into really get the branch ready to go to open. Also, books, yes, the opening day collection. I think we're about $1.1 million to open that, and our collection support services team is working, not day and night yet, but they're working pretty hard to get ready for our grand opening here in the fall. Additionally, we also had our Gateway library staff added to the budget this year because we knew in order to open in the fall, we need to start hiring. So we did start the hiring process in January. We expect to be done here June, July of hiring the full team to open that branch for the fall. So we did get that budget added into this fiscal year, 24-25. And that's why we had that $15 million and so much more than what we'd seen last year. If we were to take out those one-time dollars, our operating would be about $11.9 million. Moving on to fiscal year 24-25 year-end estimate, the biggest reason why we're not going to expend that full $15 million is because we did start purchasing the opening day collection. We spent about $1 million so far for all of the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, but we're not going to be able to expend that whole $3.4 million this fiscal year. It's going to, we did start ordering, we've started procuring, and we're working with our vendors right now, but when they arrive in July, August, that's when we end up paying the bills and when we send out the checks for those. So we are asking for $2.5 million to be moved into next fiscal year. to cover those costs. So that's why we're not going to expend that this year. Additionally, because we did have, we started hiring the Gateway staff in January, we're only going to expend about $500,000 of the Gateway Library personnel budget this fiscal year. So we'll see about another $900,000 in vacancy savings again for Gateway this year. So that's also why we're not expending the full $15 million budget. And then between our other library branches, we did see vacancy savings accrue over the year. So all combined, what we're planning to expend this fiscal year is $10.6 million. So moving into the last column there, fiscal year 25-26 budget, that includes that $2.5 million that we need to outfit the branch, our Gateway Library. And then the remainder of the budget is what it will take to operate our 4 full-service libraries, our Mesa Express Library, our Bookmobile, and our outreach team. And so that would be $11.9 million as our ongoing operating costs for all of our Mesa Public Library services. While I'm on this slide, though, I did want to make mention of one of the benefits of having the collection that we do and the market power that the library does when we're buying books at a discount, because we work with vendors and we put out an RFP to develop, sorry, let me start over. Every year, we work with 2 major vendors on our book collection budget. When we go out and set up an RFP to set up a contract with a book vendor, we get about a 40% discount when we're buying books because of the market power that we do have when we're spending $600,000 on our book collection every year. Just this last year, calendar year 2024, Mesa residents, the market value of all of the checkouts of the books that they checked out from the library was about $24 million. So Mesa residents saved $24 million by checking out a book from a Mesa Public Library. And that's an annual savings that Mesa residents are able to receive every year when they're checking out books from us. So we see that as a huge benefit, and that's just one area, simply just the collection itself, that we get to benefit the community and the savings that they get to see.
Okay, and I'll talk a little bit about our base budget reductions. So the library's budget, as Tony explained, is made up of personnel and operating costs, and those are reflected here in our base budget reductions. For the first item, we were able to adjust our estimates to more accurately reflect the ongoing needs of the Gateway Library as far as security is concerned, because we estimate that they'll use the same number of security hours as our Gateway Library, as our Red Mountain Library, and we know what those needs are. So we were able to adjust that budget accordingly to reflect the 2,727 hours that will be required. And then the Gateway Library O&M, that next item there, were estimates from 2018. That was before square footage had been finalized, and now we're able to more accurately reflect what the ongoing needs are going to be based on our standard branch operating budgets. And an example of this for equipment, each branch used to be responsible for purchasing its own equipment in 2018. Now that's been absorbed by our technology support budget and is a system-wide purchase. So we no longer have that specific line in our branch budgets, and we're able to reflect that savings. And then the Google Ad Grant. This is actually for a company called Koios. We still will receive the Google Ad Grant, which is about $10,000 a month, and that is to help drive traffic to the library's website. Koios is the company that was overseeing the grant, and because it required a lot of maintenance in the beginning and analytics that needed to be considered, we had paid for this company to oversee it. Now we're confident in absorbing that responsibility, since the time required to oversee the grant has reduced quite significantly. So we'll have a savings there. The most forward-facing reduction that you're going to see is our press reader subscription. This is an app-based subscription that allows our users to access over 7,000 magazines and newspapers. It's a great resource, however, it hasn't performed like we hoped it would perform, and we do have other options available. We have magazines through one of our other apps, and then we have the Wall Street Journal and New York Times subscriptions that our library patrons can take advantage of. So we were able to not renew this particular subscription. For the VR headset licensing, some of you may know that we received a grant from the Rotary for 30 VR headsets, and we've had a great time programming with them. We were required initially to have a business license, and that's $200 per headset that we hadn't anticipated. Because we're a public entity and we don't necessarily need a business license, we're able to find other resources, fair use for educational purposes that allow us to reduce the licensing fees. And then the last two items were our personnel items that are reflected in the reductions. This is for 2 pages to give you kind of an idea of the impacts of what a library page does during the course of their shift. Our library pages are primarily responsible for shelving books and making sure our collections are well maintained. And just a general estimate of how much might be shelved in a year's time is 40,000 volumes. So the impact of that is just a reduction of about 80,000 volumes shelved over a year. And then we would just rely on either volunteers or the turnaround time to get items back on the shelf might be reduced. We have a goal of a 24-hour turnaround time. All right, and to end our presentation, we'd like to make a plug for Summer Reading 2025. Summer Reading is the library's Christmas and spring training all wrapped up in one. It is our big event, and it is loud, and it's fun, and it's busy, and the past 3 years have been really record years. We've had so much participation. Last year was about 12,000 participants, and we expect that to be the case this year too. So we would love for you to join us starting June 1st and joining the summer reading program.
Great. Thank you, Polly. Any questions for library? Councilmember Adams, Ms. Duff?
No
No.
questions, Mayor. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Next, we'll hear from presentation 1C, Arts and Culture Department budget. We're saving the best for last, apparently.
Well, Mayor, as they're getting ready, just to give you a little bit more motivation, you did say save the best for last. They are the last department presentation that we will have.
Oh.
Don't get too excited. We still have a lot of budget to go, but Arts and Culture has the distinction of being the last council budget presentation of the cycle.
Okay, great.
I'm just waiting for Ilya.
He was just here.
He was. I think he heard about the library cards, and he's like, I gotta get on that right now. As he should. Make it full screen. Okay. Is this a touch?
Here comes Ilya. Thank you. All right. All right.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Kelly, yeah.
My name is Ilya Risky. I am the Acting Department Director for the Department of Arts and Culture. With me here is Kelly Farrow, our Senior Fiscal Analyst. And behind me we have Mandy Tripoli, the Executive Director of Mesa Arts Center, Jared Bittner, the Director of the Idea Museum, Simon Tiffany Adlam, Director of the Natural History Museum, Kristen McLeod, our Marketing Director, and Don Farley, our Development Director.
You have a great team.
I agree. Thank you for noticing. So we'd like to start out with just a general overview of what our department consists of. Our department supports 3 arts and cultural institutions, all based in downtown Mesa, but serving families across the city. Mesa Arts Center, in now its 20th year, is a world-class performing arts center with 4 theaters that offer performing arts events and rentals, 14 art studios, which offer classes in ceramics to sculpture to painting, a contemporary arts museum, and an arts engagement team that supports arts experiences outside the walls of Mesa Arts Center and out in the community. The Idea Museum, our children's museum that offers families arts exhibitions and hands-on activities, also hosts summer camps, family events, community events throughout the year, including a Night at the Museum event this evening hosted by the Idea Museum Foundation. And the Arizona Museum of Natural History, commonly known as AZM&H and the Dinosaur Museum, is also an active research facility and supports paleontology and anthropology. AZM&H also stewards Shudog Muvalvaki, an Otham ancestral site located north of downtown. Arizona Museum of Natural History works in partnership with Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community and the Gila River Indian Community to ensure the site's protection. Our 3 institutions are part of a larger arts and culture ecosystem here in Mesa that includes organizations like the Mesa Youth Creative Agency, Art Space Lofts, the Nile Theater, Mesa Historical Museum, Southwest Shakespeare Company, East Valley Children's Theater, among dozens more. All in all, arts organizations across Mesa generated more than $35 million in fiscal year 22, which is the latest year we have data of that sort for economic impact. Our public purpose and department mission is to enrich people's lives through inclusive arts, cultural, and science experiences in welcoming and creative environments. And as we provide wonderful and inspirational arts experiences to Mesa's families and community, we do that the Mesa way, by using sound financial practices to ensure sustainable service delivery and providing the best possible customer service and arts experiences and cultural experiences for our guests and patrons. And I'd like to thank all of our staff, our volunteers, our board members, the foundation boards, the Museum and Cultural Advisory Board as well for everybody's support, because we don't do this alone, we do this together. Our department's priorities and objectives this year have been to increase community engagement, to enhance external communications and storytelling, and to expand educational programming. At the Idea Museum, we've done this in a number of ways. The Idea Museum has really been on a tear this past few years with the addition of new murals, large-scale public art elements, and completing phase 1 renovation, which added the Idea Lab, a new maker space at the Idea Museum for families. That's really been driving higher attendance. Our education team is up and running in that new space. And additionally, we've just completed a rebranding at the Idea Museum so that all of the marketing materials and all the public-facing elements have an entirely new look and feel that really embodies the activity that's going on there. At the Natural History Museum, we've got a new exhibit called Thrive. With this new exhibit, we've added new programming now through the summer. We had a big opening in February. And we are working on more than 200 engagements, closer to 240 engagements, which would include a speaker series, among other cultural, educational opportunities. And additionally, very important to note, our education team's been working all year on kind of re-envisioning the curriculum for all of the work that we do within the walls of the museum and to support the school system. At Mesa Arts Center, our flagship education and poetry program, Project Lit, was rebranded this year into Lit Inc. Lit Inc. has refocused on storytelling specifically, both traditional and digital. Next year, we're planning on rebranding at MAC, so similar to the Idea Museum, just going through a rebranding. We'll be doing that at MAC. MAC has not gone through this kind of process since inception, since 20 years ago, and so it's time for a refresh. We've had continued success with community engagement activity through our engagement team, as well as through our mobile arts-based engagement lab, better known as MABLE, throughout the community. In March of this year, we added a new free festival, the Art, Light, and Technology Festival, which brought in more than 3,000 people to the campus one great Friday night. And this year, MAC has also brought in a new series of nationally touring Broadway shows to the community that will continue in each subsequent year. So our department's main KPI is participation. Our institutions track participation as the number of individual visits to each of our facilities and institutions. So for example, for Natural History Museum, and this data shows Natural History Museum, it's the number of visitors who come through the doors at the museum. Also important to note here is that the current fiscal year on this chart, the one at the bar on the far right, looks low, but that's because it's only got 9 months of data. So we still have 3 months to go through the fiscal year to collect data, so that's why it's a little bit lower. This year, Natural History Museum's participation remains strong, but we're going to come in a little bit short of target, closer to 170,000 instead of our 194,000. We feel that that's due to kind of what's going on in the sector. So a lot of natural history and science museums across the country are experiencing a dip in attendance this year. And so we're really focusing on like I said, additional additional cultural experiences that for the Natural History Museum are tied to the new Thrive exhibit. So 240 engagement activities between now and the end of the summer. We're also focusing our marketing to, again, increase attendance to our facility here. And lastly, we're now open late on Wednesdays twice a month. We've started that a few weeks ago. It's been very successful, and we plan to continue that throughout the rest of the summer. So this is a map that shows where all of our visitors are coming from. And so the city has a contract with Placer AI, which is a company that uses cell phone data to locate anonymously and by zip code where our patrons are coming from. So there's a legend in the bottom left corner that shows the number, like the corresponding colors to the map. Generally speaking, the darker the color on the map, the more participation that we get from that area. So for Natural History Museum, there's a little dot there too on the map that shows where natural history is. We have the most participation that's coming from the closest 4 zip codes, but clearly we have participation that comes from all across the city as well as all across the East Valley. At the Idea Museum, our
Ilya,
yes, sorry.
Ilya,
I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, were we surprised by that data, or was that kind of in line with what we thought, where our visitors were coming from?
I think that it was in alignment with where we thought. I mean, we know based on some of the data that we collect on the field trips that we get, we have 463 field trips and other group bookings last year. That are from across the state, and occasionally we get some from out of state as well. And so we did expect to have participation from not just Central Mesa or Central West Mesa, but from across the East Valley as well as across the city. So at the Idea Museum, our participation rate this fiscal year is down a little bit, but with our target being 81,500. But that's because we were closed for 3 months for our first phase of the renovation. So between late September and early December, we were shut down. Previous 3 years have all seen very dramatic increases, as you can see here. 28% growth between fiscal 22 and 23, 33% growth between fiscal 23 and 24. And this is really due to a drive from our marketing team, as well as kind of re-envisioning the way we've been doing exhibits historically. We're anticipating continued growth in future years now that we've completed phase 1 of the renovation and are celebrating that excitement around the new spaces. For the current fiscal year, we're above target so far through the year, and we anticipate we're going to land at about 105,000 participants. So we will be exceeding that target by more than 20% this year if we hadn't had the closure, we would have grown by 35% compared to last fiscal year. So the story here is that we're bringing in more families and more participants each year. And again, wanted to show where our participation is coming from. At the Idea Museum, it's a little bit more spread out in terms of the highest visitation. Again, Central and West Mesa that's where most of our participants are coming from, but also from Chandler, Queen Creek. Consistently, though, a lot of participation from across Mesa. And at MAC, we're on target for reaching our goal of 332,204 participants this year. Participants at MAC include patrons attending concerts and performances and events in our theaters, patrons visiting the Contemporary Arts Museum, students attending classes at the studios, as well as festival attendance for Dia de los Muertos, as well as the aforementioned Art, Light, and Technology Festival. Additionally, this includes our engagement work out in the community, and so we collect that data as well for all of the work that we do on-site in schools, as well as through MABLE, the Mobile Arts-Based Engagement Laboratory. And again, the heat map showing where our participation is coming from. MAC has even more consistent distribution of visitors across Mesa, as well as East Valley wide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Farrow to talk a little bit about our budget.
So the Arts and Culture Department operates with the support of 3 funding sources. This chart is a visual representation of what that looks like over a full fiscal year. And as you can see for fiscal year 23-24, 48% of operating expenses were supported by city general governmental funds. 47% were supported by earned revenues, and 6% of expenditures were supported through grants and contributed revenues.
Council, any questions? Ms. Duff, Mr. Adams? So far?
No,
None.
not so far, Mayor, thank you.
Ms. Goforth?
Do we, and I can't remember if I've talked to you about that, do we have a targeted earned revenue percentage that we that we're
Yeah.
shooting for, we try to meet?
Definitely. We absolutely have targets every year because we need to make sure that we have a structurally balanced budget. And so that's what our entire budget's based on, is where we think our participation's coming in. And obviously using historical information to understand our audiences, to look into the future, to see what new exhibits we have, and we make estimates based on what additional participation we think that's coming in, because that's all tied directly to revenue for most of our.
What I mean really is the
programming.
pie, just the pie, you know what I mean? Are we
In
trying
terms
to
of cost recovery?
target more, trying to get more earned revenue than the general fund revenue? Just a question.
Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, when we look at the Arts and Culture Department and the fund, they actually live on their earned revenue. So the general governmental contribution is a set dollar. And so during the year, they have that set dollar. Everything else is up to them in order to earn revenue. So if they want to add a program, they have to show the earned revenue in order to add that program, and they have to live within that budget.
And how do we set the dollar?
Each year it's looked at, when we look at the increase in personal services, there's a base level. So when we created this fund for them, there was a base level that the general fund was already contributing to. We take that base fund and we adjust it each year for their positions that are within that kind of base level budget is adjusted each year. Anything else that they do above and beyond that has to be through their own programming, whether it's donations, sponsorships, or earned revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Candace, while you're here, can you give it a breakdown of the general governmental, what that includes or what that pays for?
So for the general governmental, again, it goes back to what that kind of base budget, we changed the way we did the budgeting for arts and culture quite a few years ago now. They used to all be in the general fund, and then we would look at each year what that contribution needed to be based on what they earned each year. And when they would do a new program, they would have to put a business case together. They would put it through the general fund as a request, say, here's the program we'd like to do. Here's what we think the earned revenues are. Here's what we need as a match from the general fund. We would make that determination during the year, and we would kind of approve them on a case-by-case basis over the year. In order to let them be a little bit better at planning, programming, kind of control their world, if you will, on what they want to do. If they have a great opportunity that comes in, we've had those that come up after we've set the budget, a great opportunity comes in, we've said, you can go forward with it as long as you can cover it, right? And they let us know. So when we look at the general governmental, it's your base, it's the operations of keeping the buildings going, it's the facilities, it's the base level of employees that we have. If we did no
Like utilities and
programs,
other-
right, and if we didn't do any programs, we still have to have a base level of employees. And it's kind of a base, how we look at it is we want them to do shows that make money, but we want them to do community. We want them to be available for the high schools. We want to do the rentals of the theater for local artist groups. We want to make sure that those are competitive prices, that we get some cost recovery, but we're also contributing to the community. So all of that is in that kind of general governmental contribution.
Okay.
And then they are very innovative on how to provide additional programming to the community, as you saw with their participation, number of programs they have. But we really thought this was a really good model to move toward because it lets them control their programming for the year, especially on the performing live. It really does ebb and flow. They look at the performances. If something's not selling very well on tickets, they will cancel ahead of time, or they may add a different one that comes up during the year. So they really have that ability to look at the schedule, the season, the programming, the needs, what people are buying tickets for, what they're not buying tickets for, and kind of ebb and flow during the year. But the general governmental contribution stays the same each year, although this year it's the reduction. So when we did the 2% exercise, that's the piece of the pie that was reduced. And then they had to find out how to continue their programs without that. And they're going to go into that and how they did that. But that's how this particular department and fund works a little bit different than some of our others when we talk about Parks and Rec and cost recovery on different things. They're all in the general fund, and we're just kind of looking to see what their earned revenue is. For these guys, the general governmental contribution is set. And then all of their other operations comes from their own earned revenues.
Question, please.
Mr. Adams.
I want to make sure I understand, and I appreciate your explanation there. So the footnote does not include general governmental contributions for indirect and capital costs. How much in addition to that $9,959,000 would those items be?
Sorry, Mayor, council member, for the indirects, I believe it's about $3 million for this same fiscal year.
And what do those amount to, please? And what would be the capital I assume capitalized improvements and whatnot that are amortizing over a period of time?
Yeah, it would be general life cycle projects that happen. Like, for example, we're going through with the Mesa Arts Center, we're repairing the Arroyo, the main water feature that runs throughout campus. That's being supported not by the general fund, but by earned revenue. That's not included on this slide, but we can get that information for you as well.
Yeah, I think if, just for informational purposes, if we're going to footnote something like that, it would be helpful to have a footnote as to what the dollar amounts are. And I don't need that now, but it'd be good information to have. Thank you.
And for Mayor and Councilmember Adams, when it comes to the indirect expenses, those are going to things like a portion of the human resources, a portion of payroll, it's all of the internal services that are provided to departments. So those are apportioned out to the different funds. We have the same thing in the transportation fund and the utility funds. So a portion of what they do every day, for example, in our human resources, it's based on the number of FTEs the department has, and they get that percentage of human resources costs are attributed to that fund. So it's in human resources department, but it would be hitting the arts and culture fund. And so it's their allocation of those internal services, and then the general fund contribution covers those. So we're moving both the expenses and then covering them with the general fund.
Understood, I appreciate that. It just, when we include a footnote that says does not include, then it raises the question, well, where is it and how much? So that additional information would be helpful, thank you.
Ms. Duff, do you have a question? Comment?
Yes, so, I believe the Arts Center is also supported by our quality of life sales tax. If you can cover what that dedicated or restricted revenues are in order to support the Arts Center?
So Mayor and Councilmember Duff, the quality of life sales tax actually helped to construct the Mesa Arts Center when it was originally constructed back 20 years ago, and that was on the capital side. On the operating side, up until this year, before this particular budget cycle, it was not covering any of the operations. It is eligible for the quality of life sales tax, but up to this point, the only things we could cover in quality of life were the 64 firefighters and the 120 police officers, just based on the expenses related to those particular positions. Based on the sales tax that we've had over the last few years, that has started to shift a little bit, and we actually do have funds within the quality of life sales tax that are able to now be put back toward the Mesa Arts Center. And this actually is the first year that we're just shifting those from the general fund to the quality of life sales tax. It's still in the orange part of this pie. I'm sorry, in the blue part of the pie with general governmental. General governmental is a combination of the general fund and the quality of life sales tax. But this is the first year that we've had the capacity in that quality of life sales tax portion to actually contribute to the Mesa Arts Center as originally designed 20 years ago.
So we didn't have a dedicated part of the quality of life sales tax. I know it was in conjunction with public safety, but we didn't have a dedicated percentage. It was just allocated for the whole.
Correct, Mayor and Councilmember Duff. It was allocated for the entire program. They weren't dedicated. When we went, for example, the public safety sales tax, we did dedicate it to a 60-40 split. We did not do that in the quality of life sales tax that was voted on in 1998. That was an overall program that did have phasing in of firefighters, phasing in of police officers. It also had some Sunday library hours. It had the Mesa Arts Center for a considerable sum. We're all for operating the theater side of the Mesa Arts Center because that was the new side. We had the studios previously, not in this fashion, but somewhere else. And so it was to offset the theater side. With the Great Recession and the reduction in the availability of funds, we only had the funds to fund not even the 64 firefighters and the 120 officers. We kept them, but we had to supplement for a little while because we didn't even have enough for those positions, and that was what we had promised the residents that we would make sure that we contributed to. So the general fund had to pick up for the last 20 years the Mesa Arts Center and the theater side. So we've finally, just this year, that fund is able to, with the recent sales tax increases, are able to cover those positions as we promised and has some funds to contribute to the Mesa Arts Center now.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Candace.
All right, so this slide shows the department's earned revenues. At AZM&H, we increased admission prices at the end of last fiscal year, which is reflected in the difference between fiscal year 24 actuals and where we anticipate ending this fiscal year. As Ilya mentioned, there has been an overall national trend in decreased admissions at natural history museums, and we are seeing that here as well. As we move into next fiscal year, we are working on increased marketing and expect that revenues will hold stable. At Idea Museum, we increased admission prices by $1 in July of 2024 and membership prices by $10 in January 2025. And despite those increases due to the extended renovation closure, revenues have stayed flat from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. But thankfully, we do not have any scheduled closures in fiscal year 26. So we anticipate seeing the full year of revenues in addition to the upward trend. We're estimating about a 10% in growth. At the Mesa Arts Center, revenues are generated from 4 main areas. And those are studio class registrations, theater rentals, concession and bar sales, and the performing live programming. And we can see an increase in revenues from fiscal year '24 to fiscal year '25. And that ties back to the addition of the Broadway series. And going into next fiscal year, class prices will increase by 50 cents an hour. And that equates to an approximate increase of 5%. Ilya will go into that a little bit more in a minute. Theater rental pricing will increase by 5%, and ticket handling fees will increase by $1. Those increases will not only allow the MAC to continue offering world-class programming, it also helps relieve some of the pressure on the general governmental fund as we address the need for a 2% reduction. And again, Ilya will go into that a little bit more in a minute.
Kelly, we have a comment or a question?
The slide.
Oh.
I was just curious on the Idea Museum where you said there would be no closures. Are we starting any work on the new bond stuff? Like, will there be work continuing while it's open? Is that the plan, or are we just not doing anything through 2026?
Mayor and Council, thank you for that question. We are in the design process of the next phase of renovation, and right now that's about a year and a half process for design. So we anticipate construction really starting the following fiscal year. So we don't have any major capital projects happening.
So when the construction starts, will there be full closures at that point?
We're still working on what that construction design looks like. Our hope is that we will have phased closures where we'll close off specific areas. We will have to do a closure at one point because we're going to have to rip open the ceiling to do HVAC work. But the hope is that it's phased, so we're not closing the museum for a year, but maybe it's a month or two to be able to do that work, and then certain areas we can do that.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I know it was painful for all of us to have it closed for 3 months, mostly to the public who used it every day. So I would love to, as would you, I'm sure, love to see as limited closure time as possible.
That's our priority, but there's realities on what the work has to look like.
Right.
But again, our priority is that we remain open as long as we can to support our growing community there.
Okay, I mean, you'd think I would know all the answers to this since I sit on the board, but I'm anxious to see, when that's coming. So when I heard her say that there would be no closures through the next year, I was like, oh, we're not doing anything. So that's why I was wondering. So
Thank you for the question.
Thanks.
All right, so moving on to expenses. In fiscal year '25, we increased security significantly at the Mesa Arts Center. In addition, council approved approximately $850,000 in one-time expenses for major repairs, equipment replacement, and marketing across the department. Also reflected is an increase in expenses related to performing live programming. And like the rest of the city, we did have a 3% salary increase, which is seen here as well. Moving from this fiscal year into fiscal year '26, our proposed budget includes approximately $244,000 in new one-time costs, $424,000 in new ongoing costs, and we're carrying forward approximately $342,000 in one-time costs from this fiscal year.
Yes, Ms. Pillsbury.
I know the Arts and Culture Department kind of combined like your marketing and stuff like that for all the different organizations. So is that represented in the administration, or does like each entity pay towards that?
It's, Mayor, Council Member. It is a bit of both. The administration line includes our HR, executive director, or department director, assistant director, and the entire finance team. The rest of the centralized services that we provide, we're still kind of sorting out how to do a cost allocation that I think you're alluding to. So those are all still housed within each of those different lines.
Okay, so the cost is coming out of each of their budgets?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
All right. And this slide shows the expenses supported through grants and contributed funds. And the big difference that you will see from fiscal year '24 to fiscal year '25 are expenses related to the installation of Thrive at AZM&H.
Thank you, Kelly. So now we'd like to talk about reducing budget pressure. This is our reduction for general governmental contribution. Our target was $204,474. The way we're reaching that target is by reducing equipment replacement expenses at MAC by $34,300. We're increasing the discount admission price by $2 at both Natural History Museum and Idea Museum. I'd like to walk through a little bit of that. Our current discount admission price at both of these museums is $2 for us to participate in the Museums for All program. Museums for All program allows people who are on SNAP benefits to show their EBT card when they get to the admissions desk to get that rate. We're going to increase that rate by $2 to $4. Even at $4, we're still below market in our area. So across the valley, there are a few of our competitors who also, members of our community and arts community who participate in this program as well, and we're still priced below them. We're also increasing the studio class price by 25 cents an hour. As Kelly mentioned earlier, we're increasing it by a total of 50 cents. Part of that is going to be diverted to allow us to help offset this cost. And then again, Kelly mentioned we're increasing our ticket fees at the Mesa Arts Center by $1. Half of that, the 50 cents, is going to be supporting us reaching our target here.
So even at $4 for those discount admission prices, we still qualify for the Museums for All program? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then remind us what the normal admission price is.
The normal admission price at the Idea Museum is $11, and at the Natural History Museum is $10. I apologize.
10 at Idea.
I'm thinking in future fiscal years.
And that is staying the same?
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
And so for the Idea Museum, our budget plan includes $60,000 in one-time costs and $68,750 in ongoing costs. As Candace mentioned, all of these expenses will be supported by earned revenue within the Arts and Culture Fund. Our plan includes expenses supporting materials for exhibits, hiring temp staff to build exhibits, support for seasonal engagement activities like summer camps, and also to support supplemental cleaning and custodial support. Our ongoing costs are largely attributed to a marketing increase. This year, like I mentioned, we've just completed a rebranding, and our plan includes making that $50,000 allocation that we requested last year as one time to be part of their ongoing budget to, again, continue supporting that ongoing success that we've really had with the Idea Museum. And a little bit to increase our credit card fees to help us that's a cost of the additional revenue that we're bringing in, so. At the Natural History Museum, our plan includes $61,000 in one-time costs. All of these expenses, again, will be supported by earned revenue with the Arts and Culture Fund. We're focusing on marketing here to drive attendance and to increase participation. This year, the Natural History Museum's marketing team won 3 statewide advertising awards. You can see on the slide one of those ads that won an award on the far right. Through this investment, we're working to continue bringing more families to the museum and, again, reaching those revenue goals that we have. Birthday parties, additionally, are a benefit that we've added back post-COVID. This is a normal upsell that we're able to provide at the museum. It's very common across the museum sector. And lastly, the Mesa Arts Center. Within the Mesa Arts Center, our plan includes $123,300 in one-time costs and $355,537 in ongoing costs. One more time, all these expenses are supported by earned revenue within the Arts and Culture Fund. Our one-time costs include an investment of $60,000 to hire a consultant to help with rebranding at the MAC. I mentioned earlier that we've not rebranded since we built the MAC 20 years ago, and we feel it's time. We're supporting our Lit Inc. programming as well, replacing some equipment and studio art classes, supporting temp employee support at the Mesa Contemporary Art Museum to help with a collections data system upgrade that we're in the middle of, as well as replacing some house manager uniforms and equipment in our theaters. Our ongoing costs include support for a new position at the Mesa Arts Center, a booking agent. For our performing live programming, this position will focus on optimizing market opportunities, increasing participation for our performances, and keeping MAC competitive in the local economy and the local marketplace. This includes supporting our new Broadway series and bringing nationally touring Broadway shows back to the Mesa Arts Center program that we, again, started this year. We also have some increased costs for our new websites. The cost of our contract with our ticketing software is increasing. Some postage costs and some temp costs at the Mesa Contemporary Art Museum. Temp and contract costs to support our festivals at the Dia de los Muertos Festival, as well as the Art, Light, and Technology Fest. And for our theater rental group, we're seeing an increase to our temp costs there that support all of our theater technical staff, back of house, as well as to support increased events and some miscellaneous costs that are baked in there too.
So question, Ms.
Yes.
Duff, Mr. Adams, anything for arts and culture?
I have no questions, Mayor. Thank you.
No questions.
Very good.
2 quick questions.
Oh, wait, there's more.
Well, I just thought we had a pause there, I'll ask, but carry on. Yeah.
And so this is a summary, sorry, that was the end of that slide. This is the summary of everything. So one-time costs of $244,300 and ongoing costs of $424,287.
Okay, questions or comments? Ms.
I-
Pillsbury?
Yeah, I guess just a general question, which I guess we kind of were already talking about it earlier, but so if you're, the amount we give from the general fund is stable, we don't change that, but we look at it every year to to kind of adjust it, right? So if your earned revenue was like crazy big and higher than you expected, do you guys just add more good stuff like this, or do you then take money away for the next year from the money we get from the general fund?
I say, Mayor and Councilmember Salisbury, they're doing a forecast out of all of their programs. So we would want to know that that would be a sustained income if they were going to add a program.
Okay.
It would be things that we would look at. They do some of their life cycle projects are funded within the Arts and Culture Fund, which means it's being funded by the earned revenue. For example, we're doing just the different things that they do on their campus. The larger items are funded by the general fund as part of our life cycle. It's not considered part of their operations. But yes, if they have a banner year, which they've had, it doesn't mean that we go out and spend it right away. It means that that's great. What if we have that year that's not a banner year? How do we continue bringing quality programs every year? And same thing we do with the general fund, right? If we add a program, can we sustain it? Or is it something we want to go and look at? We're going to do it this year and then we're going to evaluate it. And they have that ability to do that as well. And they do that in conjunction with the city manager's office.
Okay. Did you have anything to add to that, Elliot?
Yeah, so if we receive more revenue than we have planned to spend, that's what we use to support our one-time costs every year. So $244,000 is a lot, but we had that.
But that was my next question then. So this money is being justified, or whatever, if that's the right word, because you were able to raise that.
Right, and we maintain a fairly significant fund balance in order to guard against being short with other revenues. I mean, we obviously have all of these different business lines that we run, so we're kind of diversified in terms of our income. But we also want to make sure that we're not adversely impacting the rest of the city or our general governmental funds. So that's why we maintain a fund balance to account for that and to really guard against that. So that gives us time to pivot and change our business so that we can then hit our targets for our revenues, continue that structurally balanced budget and success.
Okay, and looking through these 3 slides, it doesn't necessarily look like you're adding new programming, but more of like supportive stuff to.
Definitely.
For what you're already.
Yeah,
existing
increased costs
programs.
from contracts going up, new software that we've been planning on replacing and are in the process of replacing.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm just trying to get that all work in my brain.
Ms. Goforth.
Can I ask, I think I missed that. So the one-time budget adjustments are covered by earned revenue?
They're covered by fund balance from the Arts and Culture Fund.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So I think, I just have a general budget question, not necessarily arts and culture. I'm trying to think back to Parks and Rec, and I'm trying to remember when, for their budget, when I think it was required of them, correct me if I'm wrong, they had to find reductions in order to add any increases. We're not doing that with every department. We just did that with Parks, or how, was that a separate situation?
Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, this would be the exception. It would be this department would be the exception. They need to stay within their resources. We reduce the general governmental contribution, and they need to either reduce items, add revenues, or, find a different way to fund what we cut out of their contribution. So they are adhering to that. For the park, so if this is, let's say on the ongoing, the $424,000, if they couldn't make that within their available revenues, they would have to find, we're gonna close this program or we're gonna do this program instead. So they have to prioritize everything within their department, all of their programs, to stay within the available funds. And that's what Parks did. Parks was just a very large number because they had some corrections they had to do with their budget. Arts and Culture is not starting from that point. They're starting from the point that everything is in the right buckets, and they're just massaging what they need based on the resources available.
And is the same said for the other 2 presentations and their budget adjustments as well? Yeah, today.
Yes.
Goforth, yes, that is
Okay.
correct. And we also did it with the utilities also. So it was the same parameters for all of the departments, no matter if you were in the general governmental fund or if you had your own funds that your revenues come out of. For instance, like the transportation, utilities, they all had the same parameters, that it was a net 2%, so they needed to reduce the 2%. However, if they did want to add a new program, they had to cut even more or generate additional revenue to offset that.
Okay.
So all departments had the same.
Where am I seeing that on these slides? Where am I missing that piece?
So you have a slide. There is one slide, Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, that showed how they were making up that difference in the general governmental contribution. So the general governmental contribution was reduced by the 2%. That's the $204,000 was their target.
Okay.
They did that through a combination of reduction in the Mesa Arts Center and then some revenue enhancements. And so the revenue enhancements there are how they're going to fund the remainder of their programs to make sure that they're still producing quality, consistent programming. So at the end of the day, that $204,000 was achieved. That is a reduction in the general governmental contribution to their programs.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
The mayor had to step out to attend another meeting, so would you reflect that in the minutes? That the vice mayor is taking over in a coup? No, I'm good right here, but thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Quick question.
Mr. Adams?
So, just for clarity, so we're achieving these 2% reductions either by cutting expenses by 2% or a combination of an expense reduction and a revenue increase. Is that a good summary of my understanding?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Adams, that is correct, yes.
Okay. The question I would have is, if we were to put some of these items off a year, what would the public see if we didn't do some of these proposed increases, upgrades, and various other things that we've seen here detailed? I'm just curious, what would the end users see, or what would be the impact of that if we said, okay, we're not going to increase any programs here?
So, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Adams, it would depend on each department. So these revenues are related to particular programs or particular items that they want to fund within that area. For example, these ones right here, we would go back to the programs and they would have to identify which programs we are no longer going to have or reduce participation. If it was Parks and Recreation, it would be the same thing going into, we're reducing some programs already. Would we reduce, what's our next level, be our next tier of reductions in service? Is that a full program or just the reduction in number of participants that we can handle? So each department would be a little bit different because we do have them related exactly to that department and what they provide.
Well, let's jump ahead a slide or two if we could. Maybe we need to jump. Yeah, keep going, please. Okay. Let's hang there for a moment. Okay, so these are one-time cost, ongoing costs. I'm just curious of the timing. You know, there was a call for an overall 2% reduction, pretty much citywide, yet we're introducing some brand new things here this year. So I'm assuming that your feeling is these things are essential to maintaining the quality of what we offer, or I'm just curious why we would present some. I'm just seeing an unusual number of new things in a cycle where we're asking for some overall cuts.
And Vice Mayor and Councilmember Adams, I think when we look through these lists, most of these are just supporting the programs that we have today. So if we look at new items, we're really not adding a lot in the new items category. It is either increased cost or it's an investment into marketing because we're hoping to achieve additional revenues through that marketing that will have a return on investment. So there's a combination of just increased costs for the programs that we produce today, or it's an investment into a program hoping it's going to do an expansion and then return revenues back to us. So there's a combination of those. You'll see that in this department, but also in the other departments of what are the departments we're asked to go back to, what are the base level of services that we feel are important that we continue to provide in the community, and how can we do it and keep our quality. So we don't want to do peanut butter across everything and everything is reduced in the manner that we don't have quality. So do you need to close down a program in order to keep the higher priority program? And that's what the folks were asked to look at. So in arts and culture, when you're looking through this list, these are programs that we all have today. It might be replacing equipment to make sure that we don't have things that go down in the middle of a program that we're able to replace on an annual basis. We want to make sure that we're keeping up with that because kicking that down the line just means there's some year where we're going to have to come up with a lot of money to rehab a lot of things because we weren't keeping up over the year. So when you look through those, I do think that we have really focused on what are we doing today and how do we support it to make sure that we're keeping a quality program and prioritize those that we have. And so you saw that in the Parks and Recreation Department where we did delete or eliminate the programs between the school breaks, but kept the summer. So the summer was the priority for us, not the breaks. And so you are seeing us making those decisions. At the same time, we want to make sure that what we are producing is quality and that we're replacing our equipment on a regular schedule so that we don't get behind.
I appreciate that explanation. I suppose it comes down to a difference of opinion on priority, but I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And Vice Mayor, Councilmember Adams, I think you see the complexity when you have so many different and unique business units spread across this organization that we really do have to take a case-by-case look at each of those. But netting out that 2% discount was, or 2% savings from the departments was the important part of that. And it really asked the departments to prioritize how important were those new programs that you're asking for, because that meant in most cases they had to give something else up, find other additional savings within their department. I think you'd really see over the course of this that the revenue enhancements, which I've already told Brian, I really hate that word because a lot of times it is cost recovery that we're getting. Not all the time, but through the majority of those increases we've seen, it has been cost recovery. So we've had to balance that, but certainly most of the new programming, I think Brian can attest to this, that has happened citywide has mainly been paid for by departments finding that additional cost savings within their business services, within their business unit. So it is a tough challenge, though, when you look at this, and certainly arts and culture and the way that the Mesa Arts Center is, the way they do business is very different than the way most of our departments do business.
I would just comment, just to tack on, we certainly appreciate the complexity. I think the council certainly, and we also appreciate staff really running efficiently and looking for ways to cut at all times. I know this is nothing new that you do. You always do it. You've been asked for a specific number this year, 2%, but you always, I know, look for efficiencies. But the reality is, and this is not something that any of us, we have not put ourselves in this position that we're down a significant amount of revenue. So it's, as Mr. Adams said, it's a set of priorities. How are we going to prioritize some of the things we all would like to do? We may not be able to do at this point. We hope that maybe as we look out in that forecast, something comes our way and it doesn't come, come to fruition, that we keep going down and decreasing the revenues and increasing the expenses. But the reality right now is that it's unfortunate and it's nothing that we all want to see happen, but we really do. That's why the council asks these questions. That's why we pose them to you. And none of us want to do it, but we're in this position where we have to. So just a comment. Thank you.
Councilmember Duff, did you have anything?
Yes, I do. I know that making these cuts are very difficult, but I do want to add on behalf of arts and culture in our community, there is an exponential impact into our city as far as sales tax, people coming into our city for the restaurants, hotels related to performances and such like that. So I don't see it directly as just an expense, but it is an economic development and related revenue, a subject also that the arts brings in. It's not just a dedicated expense. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Two real quick questions. The vast majority, if we're looking at slide 15, general governmental contribution reductions, the vast majority of that is revenue. I'm not going to use the new revenue. Is going to be new revenue. What happens if you do not hit those targets? How are you going to find that revenue?
Vice Mayor, and when they're looking at that, that's exactly when we talk about the earned revenue. So if those revenue targets are not achieved, then they would be prioritizing their operational budget during the year and reducing it.
To make other reductions that are elsewhere now.
Absolutely.
And then a quick question on the MAC. I think we all received an email about you're closing the store. How does that tie into this? Was that a loss leader, or what was going on with that?
So Vice Mayor, thank you. That is new, that just came out this week. The store at the Mesa Arts Center was not run by the city. It was a lease to the Mesa Arts Center Foundation, the Mesa Arts Center, a $1 a year lease to the Mesa Arts Center Foundation. and so that they could provide that space for the artists. They're the ones who have gone in and looked at that over these last years. It's been in discussion for probably a year or two about how that's working or not working. The foundation is actually the ones who were helping to fund that, the back end of any operational expenses. The Mesa Art Center was providing the space, the utilities, and the cleaning. And they have, the foundation, after going through a year of review with that, have determined that they do not want to move forward at this time with that. And we are helping with that transition.
Is there going to be a sale?
They're not, they're all for sale now. They're all for sale now. So if you want to go over, you have till May 30th to buy out the whole store.
Maybe not the whole store. Save some for Councilmember Duff.
But yes, Vice Mayor, those were not included in this budget. It's not part of the Mesa Art Center's operational budget. It's just in-kind use of space.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies. I was wondering about that when I read it, if it had something to do with this. It doesn't. All right. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you so much. And we will move on in our agenda item. Item 2 is to acknowledge receipt of minutes, various boards and committees. Councilmember Spilsbury, did you have some changes, or were those reflected in the minutes?
Yeah, so it's just on 2B. On 2B, I had made some changes, but I think they emailed those out to everyone.
Yep, I saw those. So are those part of this?
Vice Mayor, they're on the agenda online, updated.
Okay, very good. So knowing that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
So move.
So Councilmember Spilsbury, and then Mr. Heredia is right here, Rich. So that's our second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Item 3, current event summary, conferences attended. Anyone? Julie?
On Tuesday, I was able to provide the opening remarks at Heartwood Montessori School for their Community Action Day, and got to see their great projects that they've been working on, the 9th through 12th graders there. And then that night, we had our big celebration kickoff for our second round of fundraising for the Mesa, fund for the Mesa Youth Climate Action Fund, and got to celebrate the projects that are going to be funded through this new round from Bloomberg Philanthropies. And they gave us double the money this year as they did last year. So because of the success last year. So they're looking for more people to participate in that. But that was a
We got
great
an email
night.
on that.
Yeah.
Push out. Excellent. Anything else? Rich, Ms. Duff, anything?
Nope.
No comments? Okay.
No, I'm good to go. Thank you.
Excellent. Councilmember Goforth, I notice you're wearing a particular T-shirt for an event that's coming up here this afternoon. May I ask what that is?
Yes, why? It's the great We Run Mesa that Nicole Leba graciously organizes, and it's at Stevenson Elementary this year. This is the last day. The award ceremony will happen today, so at 2:30 if anybody's interested. But it's a great program. We've all mentioned it. We all participate a lot. She does a great job, and we enjoy participating. So I don't know if anybody else is going today, but oh, great. Oh,
I'll
good.
see you there.
Oh, good.
Oh, great. I have tried to go to one of her events, and every time this year, something has popped up. So I might try to go this afternoon, but I don't want to say that too loud because then something's going to land on my calendar.
You don't like to run, Scott?
I don't like to run, but I
You just
do
have to
it.
high five.
I like to run when something's chasing me, but other than that. Mr. Butler, and we should be getting used to that name very soon. Any items for upcoming meetings?
Well,
Schedule meetings.
we teased you earlier with the fact that today concludes our individual department presentations on the budget. OMB will be back next Thursday for a study session at 7:30 a.m. to give a budget update on where things stand after some of the discussions and changes that we've had now. And then we're leading into the month of May where we'll have the community budget hearings later, but we'll convene next Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. for study session.
For another 3-hour study session?
We're here all day.
All right. Thank you. Anything else? We're good? Very well. With that, item number 5, to adjourn. Do I have a motion from Councilmember Spilsbury, a second from Councilmember Goforth? All in favor, say aye.
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 That carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you.